focus on these provinces in the months ahead.
What is encouraging on our part is that we are observing an overall decrease in several categories of crime when compared to the same period in the previous year, 1 October 2023 to 31 December 2023. For instance, a 9.8 decrease in murder cases, a 3.3 reduction in rape cases, a 3.2 drop in attempted sexual offenses, a notable decline in carjackings and robberies of both residential and non-residential.
The Japanese government has approved a bill making it easier for hunters to shoot dangerous animals that enter populated areas. The decision is in response to a record number of bear attacks. The BBC's Rory Gallimore has more details.
In rural Japan, the human population is aging and shrinking. In many ways, that's good news for black and brown bears, which are steadily making a comeback. But with fewer people around and factors like climate change altering the animals' feeding habits, they're more likely to venture into residential areas, and that means a higher chance of attacks.
Recapping the top story, former Free State MEC for Human Settlements Oli Mlamleli, who is accused number 12 in the asbestos roof removal case, has informed the Free State High Court that her legal representatives have pulled out due to lack of funds. I am on Delambana for SFM News Headlines at 3:30.
In your sports this hour, South Africa post 315 for 6 in their 50 overs after winning the toss and electing to bat first against Afghanistan in the Champions Trophy. Blitzboks all set for better performance at Vancouver Sevens, and Desiree Ellis to use Lesotho clash to check readiness of her youthful squad. More details at 3:30.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned, and almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
I'm in tourism. I'm running a guest house here. When I switched over to OUTsurance, it was very simple and convenient. I used the savings to subsidize my solar installations. Switching to OUTsurance was one of the best decisions I made insurance-wise, yes.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
Reigning African champions Banyana Banyana are gearing up to defend their WAFCON title in Morocco. Dr. Ellis and the girls want to deny neighbors Lesotho a moment to shine. But Mehala Dito believe their game plan is too great to stop. This is the international friendly. Experience the Southern African Derby, South Africa versus Lesotho, on Saturday 22 February at 12:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 2. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matriek mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bakkie to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
All right. Let's talk TV licenses. Did you know that paying your TV license isn't just about legalities? It helps fund local productions and creates jobs in the entertainment industry. That means more epic dramas, exciting sports and news. It keeps us all informed. So, when was the last time you checked yours? Visit the website tvlic.coza, tvlic, and make sure you're up to date. After all, it's your screen, your story. Hashtag your screen, your story.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
And it's time for me to say welcome to you. It is the National Pulse. Lots to consider, lots to reflect on as we get to the weekend. It's been one of those hectic weeks, as often is the case. And I can't escape the fact that I need to ask you this. What for you moves the National Pulse today? Crime stats amongst them must be one of the topics, but there could be more, right? So you know how to engage with me. 086 000 2032. You can WhatsApp Text messages, voice notes, all welcome. 0614 104 107, and the option 3 is on social media, on Facebook, but also on the X platform. You can tweet at Ashraf Garda and SFM Radio, and that all-important hashtag, The National Pulse, where you can give your opinions, and we more than likely will share them out as well. So I hope you've been well, and I say well because we're talking about crime stats, and, you know, that's something that always does evoke some sort of a response. I'll tell you what, before I even get to Juanita du Preez, here's a question to you listening in, right? Whatever the crime stats tells me or tells you, right, maybe reflect back on this past year and tell me whether you or your immediate family, you know, your household, have you been a victim of crime in this last year? And if so, in what way? I hope it's not the horrific way, but in what way? It could even just be like you've had the simplest thing, which is like your mobile phone stolen. I just want to know because, you know, there's the national numbers, but then there's the human story, which we often tend to overlook. And if you care to share it, I'd love to know from you, okay? Okay, let's then get to the issue of crime stats. So you've heard of the news as well. The police minister, Senzo Mkhunu, releasing the latest crime stats. And they make interesting reading. Perhaps the headline act is a 9.8% decrease in murder cases. But having said that, of course, it comes from a high base, isn't it? Let's try and understand what they really mean with Juanita du Preez, who's the national spokesperson of the Action Society. Juanita, welcome to the National Pulse.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon indeed. Right. Perhaps let's start by saying, you know, let me leave it to you just perhaps to mention maybe 5 key numbers or points that have emerged from the crime stats revealed today.
Well, we were happy to see that so many of the big crimes actually went down if you compare it to the same time last year or the last financial year. So that is good news. Our concern is, and we actually had a big discussion about that, is we have these cases reported, but our next big problem is what happens after that when they go to court. Do we go to conviction? We know it takes 3.5 years for a simple case to get to a conclusion. And then people give up because there's outstanding things that delay it is, well, obviously criminals try to manipulate the station, hiring and firing the legal representatives. But the other thing that is a big headache is outstanding forensic evidence and the processing of that. So it makes cases go on forever. So very happy that it is going down. And over December, usually it is higher than the previous 6 months. So we still saw that trend. And it is still very high. It is still almost 7,000 people murdered in 3 months. But it is going down. So we are happy to see that.
Okay, so is there anything else that stands out for you for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, if you know what I mean?
Yeah. There are many things that stand out. We still worry that something like rape is so high. 11,803 rapes reported, and we know that not all rape cases or sexual offences cases are reported, so it is underreported. And it is still very high. It is almost 5.5 rapes per hour that is reported. So that is very concerning. And something else that obviously in the crime statistics speech, it is not touched on the resources and the problems which the police face. We were waiting for the budget speech to look at that, but we know that resources is also a big problem. We have visible policing. We have people who, and that is very important, but do we have the skilled people to further investigate all of these cases? So, that is concerning.
Yeah, so amongst those numbers, you made the point that, even though that murder has decreased by 9.8%, that's the good news. The bad news, the number of people killed in that year is 6,000 953. It is a crazy number of 75 people killed
it's
daily,
people.
right? Yeah.
It's not just a number. It's almost 7,000 people.
Yeah. So 75 a day, people lose their lives only because they were killed. Nothing else. And then rape, 128, right? Where you sit, right, from the Action Society part, I mean, how do you analyze this? I mean, how do you interpret what you've just received to try and help us understand it in terms of what does it tell us about our society right now?
Well, we look at the all the cold stats that they give us, and we only work from the police's stats. So we do get a good picture of what the police is seeing and what they give the public to see. But is it the real picture? We're not sure. Obviously, if it's a murder, it must be, in most cases, a murder is reported. Where it is something more intimate, like rape or a sexual offense or even assault, then it is maybe not reported. So we look at the cold stats that they give us. They cannot argue with these stats because it comes from them. And but it does, and we break it down. And the minister said, it doesn't give a good reflection when you break it down into daily and hourly, but it's all obviously averages, and it gives a better picture so that you can understand. Per hour, we have 3.22 people murdered in South Africa. That's not good per hour.
Yeah. Which means, as you and I talk, for every 15 minutes of the show, somebody's going to be killed.
Yes. Yeah. And that puts it in perspective.
Okay. Did the minister share the reasons why the stats for the murder rate in particular has gone down?
Well, he said that the strategies that they are implementing and the operations that they are running, including more visible policing and more recruits, that it definitely plays a role. And we must agree to some extent that obviously there has been a change. There has been a change from when our new minister took over from the previous one, because now it feels like you can actually trust more the stats and also the solutions that he is reporting on, because he is believable, whereas it wasn't the case before. Nobody really believed what Cele said when it came to the DNA backlog. He was caught out so many times lying or telling the truth in a funny way.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, what is not so funny, I understand, is more than 50% of all these murders have been committed by either, in public, but also because the causes in terms of the weapon were either firearms or knives, which tells you, I mean, that's got to be one of the biggest factors that the police have got to target. That means removing the easy use of firearms and knives in terms of those being carried and readily available, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, he actually said, I can't remember now, but it was a big amount. I think around 16,000 that was firearms that was destroyed just yesterday. It was a fresh statistic. And I know there's been big press releases coming out every time they had a big find of illegal firearms. The problem that we have with that is, yes, they are destroying, but at the same rate, how much is going back in? Because then if you look at gangsterism in the Western Cape, which you also lifted out as a problem, where do they don't have legal firearms to commit their crimes with. So as much as they are destroying and winning, we don't know the extent of the problem flowing in.
Here's the last one, and it really jumps off the page for me. Right, there were 12 farm murders in the year in question, which is very topical in the light of what Donald Trump has expressed about South Africa. And of the 12 murders on a farm, 4 were employees, and 1 farmer was killed. Just 1 farmer was murdered on a farm in South Africa in the past year. That's interesting.
It is interesting, and those stats has always been in the past been met from the farming community with a bit of doubt. because it seems like their numbers aren't the same as the police's numbers. I am not sure how the police, why doesn't correspond. So, yeah, I hope that we do not see a big increase in the police's stats or in the independent stats in light of what was said. It's going to be interesting to see, because it's only now. So now in the next reporting phase, then we will probably see if it had an impact.
Yeah, point made. Let's leave it at that. Juanita du Preez, the National Spokesperson of the Action Society, thank you so much for your time here and talking to us on the National Pulse. And to confirm, I mean, this is for the quarterly report for 2024-2025. So, and therefore that quarterly just ended. Well, give me your thoughts on that. I'm particularly interested in all the things in terms of those numbers. Even though they may have dropped, they are still substantially unacceptably high. But those farm numbers are interesting, even if they are underreported, and I have no doubt they are underreported. But even if they're underreported from 12, let's even double and treble that or quadruple that. It's nowhere near what has been expressed globally by the President of the United States of America. Well, this is the National Pulse. What's your pulse telling you now?
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We're a sealing and partition company. I like OUTsurance. They have that personal touch. In addition to the great service they give me, they've also saved me and my company 3,266 rand per month. Guys, make that call. It's well worth it.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover. Or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
V up your February with great value deals from Vodacom Business. Meet the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra featuring integrated Galaxy AI. Get it on a Red Business 1.5 gig plan for only 1,539 rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 69 rand extra per month and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
The giants of French rugby, Bordeaux Peclair and Clermont Auvergne, are fighting for a massive victory to cement top 5 positions. This is the top 14. Rugby the French way. Catch the huge contest between Bordeaux Union Peclair and Clermont Auvergne on Sunday, 23 February at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hi, I'm Khomotso KG Mweketi, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons right here on SAFM, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide with me, KG Mweketi.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
I can tell you now, every Friday we have this fireside chat. I have got a fascinating fireside chat guest at 5 o'clock. Do join me, do join him, do join us. You're going to really enjoy getting into the mind of this, well, I would think very much a thought leader in our country, right? Okay, let's move on to another issue where we certainly need to give some thought to. In the Global Watch feature, war continues, as you know, in the eastern DRC, right? Now, in the meantime, the U.S. Treasury Department has imposed sanctions on James Kabarebe, that's the Rwandan Minister of State for Regional Integration, and a senior member of the M23 group, that's Lawrence Kanyuka Kingston. The two leaders are accused of enabling the RDF and the M23's destabilizing of activities in that eastern DRC region. So, sanctions against them and not the president of Rwanda. Let's try and understand all of this with Nixon Katembo, the African Affairs commentator who also works for the SABC Channel Africa. Nixon, as always, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Good to talk to you, Ashraf, and to SFM listeners.
Thank you. Right. So, firstly, are you surprised by the United States imposing sanctions on 2 individuals from the Rwandan region, Eastern DRC region?
Not at all. In fact, this is long overdue, and I think those who have been following the problem of the Eastern DRC since 1996 would agree with me in assertion that this is a long-awaited steps in the right direction, although it's not the overall approach that should be taken, but at least a sort of a silver line in solving the situation. Because James Kabarebe has been the mastermind of many of the rebellion in Eastern DRC, of course, on orders of Kagame, who is commander-in-chief of the Rwandan Armed Forces. And by context, you remember James Kabarebe led and commanded the Rwandan forces when they invaded the DRC in 1996, toppling dictator Mobutu and getting Kabila to get in power. And James Kabarebe, historically, in the history of the world, is the only person who has ever been chief of the armed forces in 2 countries, chief of defense in Rwanda and the chief of defense in the DRC. And whenever some of the comments are made, making sure that this is a continuation of Rwanda's invasion in the DRC, the current M23, people tend to think that it's an issue that people do not understand the context, but also the propaganda machine that have been built around this whole Rwanda's interference in internal affairs of the DRC. You saw, for example, one Willy Manzi being paraded on a TV screen as a Mnyamulenge in the diaspora, only to be appointed a few days later as the governor of North Kivu after taking military takeover by the M23 of the province. So there is a lot to be said about what is currently going on in Eastern DRC.
So when we talk about U.S. sanctions, what does that really mean? Meaning, what are the implications of what they call sanctions?
Well, the individual affected, actually, assets are frozen. They can't travel from one country to another, and they can't transact in terms of their personal business dealings from one country to another. Even the countries who deal with them in terms of their business links run the risk also of being affected by the sanction regime under the U.S. Treasury. So in essence, this kind of immobilize them not to commit crime, and particularly financial crimes, in terms of the looting of the resources of the DRC and using that now to fund the war effort.
Okay, and I mean, is it normal to sanction an individual rather than an actual state or a political party or a region? Is that normal?
It's normal. Sanction regime differ from one political problem or even economic crime for that matter. And in this case, they are looking at the sanction the individuals who are responsible for the ongoing conflict. And in this case, James Kabarebe being at the center of the command and control of the M23, strategically so, but also after the U.S. had specified itself that the company linked to him, as well as Lawrence Kanyuka, are the one funneling and funding the M23 out from outside. So those differ. Now, for the country, for example, we saw what happened to Zimbabwe. Sort of punitive measures for a country not to be able to trade in the world. At the world stage, and this is particularly targeting individual, which is different from the country sanctions.
I understand. Right now, I mean, I would take it, unless you may feel differently, that if James Kabarebe is such a key person in terms of what you've just said, in terms of being the problem causer of that region, would he have had the support of Paul Kagame? And if so, then why would not the leader of Rwanda be sanctioned as well?
There are diplomatic maneuvering that have to happen before sanction considerations are made. And they look at the key issues, key sectors, but key individuals. And in this case, they have first to look at key individuals. And I cannot help myself but to understand that there will be maybe more on the part of the DRC side, including in the government of the DRC, those who are embezzling funds of the country. On the part of the rebellions, also the other individuals as well. We know that Corneille Nangaa is already on a sanction list of the U.S. Treasury. Whether President Paul Kagame will come on board, I think that is an issue of state to state and diplomatic relations from one country to another, and it also involves intense lobbyings, by the way, by these countries to be able to reach such a conclusions that a country or individuals or even a president of a country be put on a sanction list.
And maybe just the last thing as we get to news time very briefly, that a week ago we were talking about the bodies of the South African Defence Force soldiers returning home. What has happened to that region in the last few days? I mean, can you update us on that?
Obviously, the region is under dire situations. There is no liquidity for that matter in an area like such as Goma, which is controlled by the M23. The food supply is minimal. When you talk to individuals on the ground, they tell you of a crisis that is happening, both humanitarian but economic crisis as well, when people cannot have areas where to buy food or even money to buy food themselves. It becomes a kind of a bigger problem. And of course, the other issues that is emerging is where these rebels now are targeting individuals those who have been read to be or seen to have been against the agenda in the DRC.
All right, and we'll follow that story, I'm sure, in the days ahead. Nixon Katembo, African Affairs commentator, thank you for your time. Let's get to the news headlines now. Here's Ondela Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, the UN Economic Commission for Africa Ambassador Clever Gatet says for Africa to experience development, the issue of peace and security must be dealt with decisively. Police Minister Sanzo Mchunu says provinces such as Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern Cape and Western Cape pose the biggest challenge to law enforcement as they continue to dominate with criminal activity in the country. And Chief Army Lawrence Mbata has described Peter Strydom as a remarkable individual who had a fearless spirit. Mbata speaking at a funeral service of Strydom, who died last month in Democratic Republic of Congo during clashes between the DRC Army and M23 rebels. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in four ways queuing towards Winnie Mandela Drive exit. The N1 northbound in Midrand is queuing towards New Road. The N3 southbound in Bedfordview queuing towards Van Buren Road. The N1 southbound in Pretoria has a crash before Rigel Avenue. In Braamfontein, Empire Road is where a crash is reported at the M1 highway, and the M1 southbound queuing near Empire Road. In KZN, the N3 eastbound queuing towards Sherwood exit. The N3 westbound in Hillcrest has a stationary truck at Keyridge. The M4 southbound in Mhlanga is queuing near the M41 interchange. The N3 westbound queuing towards Pavilion Shopping Centre exit, and the N2 southbound has a stationary truck reported before the M41 gateway exit. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound is slow moving. That's towards the N1 Koeberg interchange. The N2 outbound is slow moving through Somerset West. The N1 inbound has a crash reported near Sable Road exit, and Victoria Road outbound slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Well, Tumi is wearing a South African cricket top, and she's watching the TV screen, and the South African cricket team are playing against Afghanistan. What could she be talking about?
Of course, we're talking about cricket. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, South Africa posted 315 for 6 in their 50 overs against Afghanistan in the Champions Trophy. Earlier, the Proteas won the toss and they elected to bat first. Ryan Rickelton top scoring with 103 of 106 balls. Themba Bavuma, Rassie van der Dussen, and Aiden Markram also smashed solid half centuries, hitting 58, 52, and 52 respectively. And Mohammad Nabi taking figures of 2 for 51. So Afghanistan will need a record chase here. Their highest successful chase in ODIs is 283, and that was against Pakistan. So there will be a great record if they are able to do it over here. However, right now, Afghanistan are sitting on 17 for 1 after 4 overs. They need 299 runs for a win. It'll be interesting to see how they will chase this one. But I think a great total for South Africa, but we are waiting to see how things will pan out there at Karachi. Then in rugby, the Blitzboks are back in action this weekend at the Vancouver Sevens tournament. SA opened their Vancouver challenge with a match against New Zealand. That is tonight at 10:02 this evening, South African time. Co-captain Impie Visser says that the SA Sevens team are keen to right the wrongs of last season. Now, the Blitzboks are currently 4th in the standings after picking up 10 points in Dubai, 20 as the winners in Cape Town, and 14 in Perth towards the end of last month. They finished 9th in Vancouver last season. Now, in football, Banyana coach Desiree Ellis says that she hopes the 2 friendly international matches against Lesotho will indicate where her youthful side is in terms of readiness. The African champions are currently in camp, where Ellis has selected mainly under 17 and under 20 women's national team players just to assess them ahead of the CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations in July in Morocco. And Ellis says that she intentionally didn't bring any senior players so the younger ones don't feel any pressure.
Look, we want to see players play. Let's make no mistake, because that's the only way that you can see whether they can step up. Training shows you that they can do something. And sometimes players don't perform in training and people expect the players to play, but it starts at training. So we're hoping to see the players play, and then for them to show us what they're capable of doing, and if they can be added immediately or whether we need to call them in again and monitor them over a period of time, because people think I go to games because I want to be seen on TV, but I can watch the game on TV. You know, I want to see what's happening on the field. I want to see all the actions when players lose the ball. What are their reactions when coaches speak to them? What are their reactions? I want to see all of that, because it's not just about talent, it's about attitude, it's about everything, because we need the whole package, you know, we need the whole package. And we purposely didn't bring in any of the senior players because we didn't want to put the players under pressure. We wanted them to feel that, you know, they need to step up without there being any pressure. And that is the only way we can make the core group bigger.
Well, kickoff is at 12:30 tomorrow on SABC2. Meanwhile, Marumo Gallants have fired Dan Malisela and Technical Director Molefi Ntseki. In a statement that they sent out today, Gallants say that this is following the club's struggle to improve its league standings. Currently 14th on the log with just 4 wins from 17 matches. The club is looking for a fresh approach. Then the Europa League draw has taken place, and Tottenham Hotspur will face AZ Alkmaar, and the winner of that will face either Ajax or Eintracht Frankfurt. Manchester United are up against Real Sociedad, and they will take on FCSB or Lions, the winners of those two. And then Rangers will challenge Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce, and the winner of that will face Roma or Athletic. But just a side note, if Fenerbahce go through, of course Mourinho could take on his former side Roma, who he's very familiar with in the Europa League, having already taken them there to the final. Then finally in boxing, newly appointed Boxing South Africa chairperson Ayanda Khumalo says that they have accepted the challenge of returning to the sport to its glory days. Khumalo, who leads a board of 7 members, addressed the boxing community during the opening day of the boxing convention in East London yesterday. And a lawyer by profession, Khumalo is under no illusion that they are taking over a sporting code that is beset with problems in and outside of the ring.
Just after our appointment on the 19th of December, the Minister had an introductory session with us on the 20th of December. The Minister acknowledged that most of us come from various disciplines and with various expertise, but he asked us to try and delve into the medical space so that we can nurse boxing out of the ICU. And we have accepted that challenge. Minister also mandated us to start working towards the preparation of the convention, which he emphasized should take place before the end of February. In response to these directives, we prioritized meetings. Arising from these interactions, we listened and heard the cries of licensees. We connected with their pulse. We felt their pain as they poured their hearts out.
Well, with that said, it is a wrap from my side. Just leaving you with the score update. Afghanistan currently on 28-1 after 5 overs. Ashraf, do you think they can do it?
No, they can't. Okay, let's move on. Listen, I'll tell you what. What more do I have to say? Jose Mourinho, you said something that really got me interested. You said if his team wins, Fenerbahce, right, the Turkish club,
yes,
then they could well face their former club, Roma. Now, I'm going to extend that to say, or they could face his former club, Tottenham Hotspur, or they could face his former club, Manchester United. So who has he not coached?
I mean,
Kaiser Chiefs, he hasn't. That's it.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul?
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Reigning African champions Banyana Banyana are gearing up to defend their WAFCON title in Morocco. Dr. Ellis and the girls want to deny neighbors Lesotho a moment to shine. But Mehala Dito believe their game plan is too great to stop. This is the international friendly. Experience the Southern African Derby, South Africa versus Lesotho, on Saturday, 22 February at 12:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 2. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
Hi, I'm Zycard. Catch me every Saturday from 7 to 9 p.m. on Spotlight as we bring you blow-by-blow sporting action, news. That's Spotlight every Saturday. You don't want to miss it.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so tell you what, let's get your thoughts on some of the biggest issues we've been talking about. Certainly we've been talking about the crime stats, and you know, those figures, no matter what the decreases are, they're still incredibly high. I mean, just to put that into perspective, okay, and I'm looking at some of Yusuf Abramji's tweets, okay, 6,593 murders between the period October to December. That's just 3 months, okay? So 73 per day. We've spoken about that. Attempted murders, 7,666 in the same period, okay? And then the rapes we spoke about, already 131 every day. And car hijackings, 53 on average every day. 413 of those were truck hijackings. I can go on. Those numbers are just crazy. How can that not be treated as a national crisis is just beyond me. Let's talk about the G20 foreign ministers meeting. You know, it was very busy yesterday. The president spoke. There was also a media briefing at the end of it all. So today, of course, is the final day of the G20 foreign ministers meeting. And I understand that what comes up next is what is called the B20. In absence was the certainly a high ranker from the United States, but they were present, I understand, in some form or the other. Let's get further details in terms of some of the outcomes with Kailitle Kumalo from the SABC's International News Desk. Thank you for your time. As always, good to connect here on the National Pulse.
Well, fantastic, Ashraf. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So yesterday I put it to Sophie, I'll put it to you today again. You know, we're not there, you, our eyes and ears. What's it been like over the last 2 days?
Well, Ashraf, obviously it's been a very interesting couple of days here in South Africa. As you know, that these are very powerful economies, albeit with the absence of the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. But South Africa says, look, it will continue to engage with the Washington, D.C. to understand if they talk about expropriation of land, it's all about, you know, it's not like any land grab or any just policy that is motivated by just a violation of people's rights in terms of private property. But also what is very key, Ashraf, really, these are key global issues, whether you're talking about climate change, looking at issues of sustainable development goals. As you know, that already the United Nations boss, Antonio Guterres, has made it very clear for the G20 to lead in terms of the global agenda, talking about these economies from all these continents, that they have the clout to resolve all these pressing global issues. But Ashraf, also a very interesting part for South Africa, it's all about addressing these pertinent issues, whether you're talking about debt sustainability. As you know, there's a number of developing countries in the global south, they're really bearing the brunt in terms of the repayment, in terms of the exorbitant cost, and many other issues as well. But all of these happens at a very critical time with the geopolitical tension. You look at the conflicts between Russia and Ukraine, and it's been very interesting also, Ashraf, observing from the sidelines the bilateral meetings where we've had Sergei Lavrov, the Russian Foreign Affairs Minister, meeting with his counterpart from China, Wang Yi, where they're talking about a lot of issues, and also looking at other very influential economies like India, and a very interesting time for South Africa, because when you go back to that address that was made by President Ramaphosa, he said he wants Africa's voice to be included. And all of this is happening in South Africa, really just changing all these global dynamics.
What did anything stand out for you? Meaning a lot of it is pretty obvious and predictable, right? Because you know what the plans may be, right? But did anything surprise you?
I think obviously, quite a lot of questions are lingering about the U.S. This is a powerful economy, and if they are represented by the low-ranking officials, what does it mean about their involvement in the G20 business, especially because we know that countries like South Africa and those friendly countries, the issue of multilateralism is absolutely key in tackling these interconnected challenges. So it's been really interesting observing all of this. And some of the countries that are perceived to be Pretoria's allies, your Russia, your China, really showing South Africa overwhelming backing over the past couple of days or so. And they really say that they want a successful G20 presidency for South Africa. But a very interesting time as well for South Africa, Ashraf, having such a gathering of this nature, where some want to imply that is the country's prestige still intact in the African continent? Is South Africa still a gateway place to be? But I suppose, this is really providing answers to some degree that, look, South Africa is still quite a very powerful player just beyond sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we know our president spoke, right? And yes, of course, we are the host, so we hold the presidency of the G20 throughout this year, right? But how was South Africa received? I know it's home ground territory, but how was South Africa received by the other countries, particularly the European Union, in the context of what's happened with the USA?
I think obviously South Africa, Ashraf, it does have a very cordial relationship with a number of members of EU. For example, the High Representative of the European Union and the Vice Commission President is also in the country. I think really there's a great deal of understanding of South Africa's priorities, Ashraf, especially because when they talk about climate change, almost every part of the world understand what's climate climate change is all about, and the far-reaching implications that this is not something that's really far. This is an existential crisis that is affecting so many countries. But also, well, when you talk about South Africa and its own agenda, tying very nicely with the issue of energy, the mobilizing financing for just energy transition, again, South Africa collaborating with some of the major economies within EU. Once again, there's a very clear understanding where South Africa is coming. And I think there was a point where I spoke to the Norwegian Foreign Affairs Minister who said, look, they're really in favor of South Africa's G20's presidency. They want it to succeed, especially, Ashraf, as you know, that it's been a very interesting couple of years. You know, you go back to 2022 in Bali, Indonesia, going all the way to 2023 in New Delhi, in India, where the African Union became a full member of the G20. Once again, really showing the dynamics in terms of the geopolitics, that you can't really talk about the global agenda without really involving sub-Saharan Africa. So it's quite important to make sure that Africa is part of these processes.
And lastly, what happens next? I hear this, there's a B20. So what does that mean, and what happens next broadly?
Well, that's right, Ashraf. So there's quite a lot in the pipeline in terms of these meetings. Now, as the foreign affairs ministers are due to wrap in Johannesburg, there wants to be a declaration this time. So what's going to happen is that the next leg now is going to be the finance ministers who will be meeting in Cape Town. Again, looking at the macroeconomic issues, looking at the global economy with all these challenges, and also reflecting really in terms of how to improve the global economy. And again, we do understand that the U.S. won't be represented by the Secretary of Treasury. They'll be represented, I believe, from a senior staffer. Not much details have just been given out to that effect, but quite a lot, really. But the culmination of the G20, Ashraf, will be in Johannesburg in November, where the G20 leaders will come to South Africa, again looking at all these issues that will be consolidated and really reflecting on the way forward, because also they work on the basis of the Troika. So you have Brazil as a former chair, then the current chair, South Africa, and the US, which is the incoming chair. So it's going to be really interesting whether will it be a seamless handover from Pretoria to Washington, D.C.
Well, let's see, or a penalty shootout of sorts. Khayelitsha Khumalo, thank you for your time, right? SABC's from the SABC International News Desk. Well, there you are, the G20 foreign ministers meeting, 2 days of that. Anything that you picked up from that, and now moving into the business side of it, the B20 culminating into the actual G20 summit at the end of the year. Anything you'd like to raise based upon the conversations we've had around the G20? I'd like to know. This is the National Pulse. I will engage with you after this.
V up your February with great value deals from Vodacom Business. Get the new Samsung Galaxy A16 on a Red Business 1.5 gig plan for 379 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 29 Rand extra per month over 24 months and get the Samsung Galaxy Fit 3. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN, OTP feature, and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of CAPTCHA will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
The Chili Boys have a top-class game plan to relocate from the bottom half. But Babina Noko prefer a position in the top 5. This is the Betway Premiership. United battles it out with United. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game. Chipa United FC versus Sikukune United FC. This Saturday, 22 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, I want to hear what you have to say here on the National Pulse. You can call in to 086 000 2032. And then WhatsApp, text, voice note options you have 0614 104 107. And you can also tweet out your thoughts directly on the X platform. Just take SFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda. Do the same on Facebook as well. Let's start with Anonymous. Hello, Anonymous.
Hi, Ashron. How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Right, what do you want to get off your chest?
Not per se what I want to get off of my chest. It's just maybe just a contribution in terms of the crime stats. Because when you look at the crime stats, there's some mitigating factors that needs to be taken into consideration. One, let us not look at the stats in terms of numbers, but I understand there is numbers to be involved. But let us look at the body of the crime, or crime as a body, as a living organism. Then you'll get the first tier of crime, which will be the enforcement tier, where you will get your involvement of SAPS and other law enforcement agencies. Then your second tier would be obviously your persecution of crime, or where you will get your NPA, your legal spheres of crime, where they now dissect the crime that was committed and they translate the crime into actual numbers. Then you get your third tier of crime, where you get...
All right, can I just speed you up? I'll tell you why. We're just running out of time here. Is there a specific point you want to make?
Yes. The specific point that I wanted to make is that there's a big picture in terms of the crime. Remember, crime can be underreported, but red does not mean that it's a bad thing, because you can find that crime can be reported from the public, but now we're looking at the quality of the convictions of these crimes.
I think everybody agrees that it's been underreported. There's no question about that, okay? But we have to deal with what we have. So perhaps, one can estimate by what degree of underreporting, but at this point in time, that's what we're going to have to work with, right? Anonymous, thank you for that, but you've made your point. Willie in Kuma, hi.
Hi, Ashraf. Before I get to my point quickly, and I've been complaining for a quite long time now, the SMSs that are not being read by all of you almost. And Motlatlana, I once complained because we do have SMSs sometimes if our mobile phones have broken. So please, guys, read the SMSs as well.
Well, look, I must tell you, in our defense, Willie, I have not called for an SMS on air on this show ever since my return to SFM. I haven't. And I'll tell you, so it's not like we're asking you to SMS and then not reading it out, okay? That's the first thing. I can tell you now, just in terms of managing time between callers, between WhatsApp voice notes and then WhatsApp text messages, we find from and this is just pure logistics, right, from the team we've got here, we don't have the time and the resources to find other platforms. So that is why I've always given out only a WhatsApp number and a call-in number and not an SMS, if you understand that.
So just suggest to them, those who would call, the SMS is also to be used, to stop completely...
Well, I don't have to suggest it if I'm only giving them a WhatsApp number. I'm only saying WhatsApp. I'm not saying SMS.
Your colleagues.
All right. Okay, I'll tell the rest of the colleagues on the other shows, and whether they listen to me, I don't know. But okay, I can only deal with this show, the National Pulse. Willie, thanks for that. Okay, thank you for that too, Willie Kumar. Wanted to talk about Rwanda, by the way, which we missed that issue completely. Right, let's take other comments, and I'll tell you they've come via WhatsApp, just so that you know. Right, right. Let me just find it. Of course, the issue of crime, I'd expect to get a reaction, and we have.
Hi, Ashraf. Even if they can say only one person is being killed in South Africa, I'm still not going to celebrate that because that is the life of the human being. That the person who died got the family and everything. So for me, I will always say we cannot get this thing right up until we change the constitution of the country. Because of the constitution of the country favors the criminals. Because the criminals, they know once you must be scared to kill a person knowing that the consequences, they are not going to be right. So this is Jacob in Mokopane, is a Kakape.
So when you say change the constitution, which part of the constitution would you change that you think will reduce crime? I mean, I'm not going to assume what you mean, but which one? Which part of the Constitution? I think the bigger issue for most people right now is what we need to change is to up our law enforcement, to change the, to be very strategic around preventatives, law enforcement, and then also to ensure that we as a people are absolutely spot on a culture of not being, not breaking the law. I think, and that doesn't need any constitution to tell us that. We just know what it is, and yet we do it anyway. And I'm talking collectively, of course, right?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. About the murder rate dropping down, this is good news. And I think this should also be attributed to the sterling job that is being done by the Provincial Police Commissioner of KZN, Mr. Mkhwanazi. That man is doing a good job. Yes, I know that we should not applaud a fish for swimming, but the credit must go where it is due. Thank you very much, Peter Maila Machaba from Letswatla.
Okay, Peter Maila. Well, I'll tell you what, I'd love to see that being, this is 3 months, and of course we've got a new Minister of Police, I understand that. I'd like to see that extend to a complete year and a half of an absolute downward trend. So when we talk about 75 murders a day, can we get to zero? But if not zero, can we get to like 10 murders a day? Then we'll see something substantial happening. 75, 65, 82, all of that, the numbers, it's like whether you lose 5-0 or 6-0, does it actually matter? You get my point, okay? Let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. A call to deal with peace and security in Africa, and Minister of Rural Development to meet with Amazulu King for SAFM News. I am Ondela, and a very good afternoon. The UN Economic Commission for Africa Ambassador Clever Gatete says for Africa to experience development, the issue of peace and security must be dealt with decisively. He also highlighted the ongoing war in Ukraine that has an economic toll on the continent. He further says instability in Africa derails many initiatives aimed at improving the economy. Gatete, speaking to the SABC on the margins of the G20 Foreign Affairs meeting in Johannesburg, stressed that G20 can play a crucial role in mediating in the global conflicts.
Peace and security are a prerequisite. We cannot only talk about development without looking at the issues of peace, because there's a nexus between the two. And that's why we need to take them on both at the same time. In the Sahel, in the DRC, in Sudan, and in other parts, just on Africa, but also globally, they have implications. The effect, for example, of the Russia-Ukraine war, it had an impact on us, although it was not on our continent. And that's why the G20, the biggest bloc that you have, can be able to address these kind of issues.
Police Minister Senzo Mchunu says provinces such as Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern and Western Cape pose the biggest challenge to law enforcement as they continue to dominate with criminal activity in the country. Mchunu was speaking at a media briefing on the 2024 third quarterly crime statistics in Hatfield, Pretoria. He says law enforcement authorities will particularly focus on these provinces in the months ahead.
What is encouraging on our part is that we are observing an overall decrease in several categories of crime when compared to the same period in the previous year, 1 October 2023 to 31 December 2023. For instance, a 9.8 decrease in murder cases, a 3.3 reduction in rape cases, a 3.2 drop in attempted sexual offences, a notable decline in carjackings and robberies of both residential and non-residential.
Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development, Mzwanele Nyonzo, says he will be meeting with the Amazulu King, Misuzulu Kazwelithini, on the 4th of next month. The meeting has been scheduled to try and deal with the impasse between the king, who is the chairperson of the Ingonyama Trust, and his board. Relations between the king and the board have broken down, with the king allegedly refusing to work alongside the board. Since then, Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Land Reform and the Ministry have been attempting to find a solution. Nyonzo today told the Portfolio Committee that his department is unable to conduct oversight of the Ingonyama Trust Board while the situation continues.
This sideshow of internal conflict in board has removed the focus on the core business. And I'm saying once, for me, if the committee can also advise and talk on the question of the board itself, once we deal with that, and have a board that works with the king and the chairperson or the sole trustee. By the way, the king, who is the chairperson, was very clear. I'm ready to resign as the chairperson and hand over to another chairperson, but on the condition that this board must go.
Chief of Army Lawrence Mbata has described Peter Strydom as a remarkable individual who had a fearless spirit. Mbata was speaking at a funeral service of Strydom, who died last month in Democratic Republic of Congo during clashes between the DRC Army and M23 rebels. Mbata says Strydom's legacy will continue. The case of a 50-year-old man who was arrested for making derogatory remarks about black people has been postponed until the 27th of February in the Cape Town Magistrates Court. He was arrested after a social media rant containing vulgar language went viral. In the video, he warns whites to wake up before they are harmed in their houses. The man uses the K word and insults President Cyril Ramaphosa and EFF leader Julius Malema. He was arrested in the Eastern Cape after the Commercial Crimes Unit acted on a complaint. NPA spokesperson Eric Ndabazalila says the matter has been postponed until the 27th of this month. Bail information. Recapping the top story, the UN Economic Commission for Africa Ambassador Clever Gatete says for Africa to experience development, the issue of peace and security must be dealt with decisively. I am Mondela Mbara for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Pakistan 42 for 2 after 11 overs with 274 runs in 39 overs to win against South Africa. Bulls make changes ahead of the Just Gate Derby and the SA Davis Cup team drawn against Morocco. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the G20 meeting taking place today has led to some road closures and traffic restrictions in the Nasrec area for that foreign ministers meeting. The M1 northbound in Melrose has a crash near Athol Oaklands Road, and the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a crash before the M41 Gateway exit. The N3 westbound is queuing towards Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. The N2 southbound slow moving towards Ananda Road, and the M4 northbound queuing towards Umhlanga Rocks Drive. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards the N2 highway. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. The N7 Jakes Harville Drive southbound is slow moving towards Voortrekker Road, and Batencroft Street outbound is queuing towards the elevated freeway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Okay, Lhasa, we are recording 3, 2, 1, go.
A cold case is opened 39 years later after the body of a young man is discovered in a derelict building. There are 4 suspects. Suspect 1, a clergyman.
Umfundisi.
Suspect 2, an eminent entrepreneur.
I really, those people are always shady.
Suspect 3, a community worker.
Hey, uthini manje? What are you saying?
And suspect 4, a wheelchair-bound husband caring for his wife.
Hey, and vele you can't.
Each has a secret to hide. As their lies unravel, the people that they love the most begin to wonder what else they might be capable of. Nothing in this case is black and white. Can you ever really know the people closest to you? What secrets have they buried? Tune into Unforgotten Season 1, Monday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Starts 24 February only on S3. Tabo, don't tell me that the script freaked you out. Where are you?
Borussia Dortmund and FC Union Berlin are both searching for a decent position in the top half. They have a big battle for maximum points. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch Borussia Dortmund FC versus FC Union Berlin on Saturday, 22 February at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
I tell you what, one of the most interesting things that people have observed regarding the G20 summit, which, as you know, is at Nasrec, which is, that big exhibition area virtually, next door adjacent to the Soccer City or F&B Stadium, right, is this, that in the last couple of days, there's been a massive cleanup. I've been following Fidel Hafiji's tweets, and, she's very much eye on Joburg stories. She's saying, the amazing Nasrec cleanup continues. The G20 session wrapped up. Even the crash barriers were being repaired. Joburg's roads and crash barriers are really dangerous. It can be done when it must be done. We must make it a must. So all those areas just around the Nasrec region, there's like a major spruce up of that area. And therefore, someone suggested, bring on the G20. Can you see it does wonders to a certain region? Interesting indeed. All right, let's move on. In fact, we're gonna get to some of the WhatsApp. We'll get to some of the WhatsApps just now. In the meantime, there's some developments, of course, regarding the state of the province address. Naturally, so we've had the SONA. So we're going to look at two regions, the Eastern Cape and the Free State, right? But what we'll do, I think we're going to go to the Eastern Cape first and find out what exactly has been the position there, right? With me is the SABC News reporter covering the Eastern Cape region, and that's Sidima Mfeko. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and the listeners.
Thank you. Right, so give us a sense of what's come through regarding the Eastern Cape today.
Yeah, well, this is the first, state of the province address in the 7th administration, and when the Premier was delivering the address, he did mention that, their focus insofar as the provincial development plan is going to be based on three things, or three interrelated aspects. They're looking at inclusive growth and job creation, and they're also looking at reducing poverty and tackling the high cost of living, as well as building a capable, ethical, and agile developmental state. And in so mentioning, the Premier did mention one of the critical things there being, the employment rate, saying there that, they have, in fact, they are foreseeing that in the next 5 years, the Eastern Cape is going to have employed about 4 million people in the province. He also did mention that even though the economy of the Eastern Cape seems to be, growing very steadily, they're hoping that by in fact, their set target for 2025 is 2.8%, and currently it stands at 2.1%. So he's saying that they're also, hopeful that, the agricultural sector, manufacturing, oceans economy, and the digital economy and tourism sectors, they are going to be the frontiers of economic growth in the province of the Eastern Cape. He also looked into, very critical things like the Department of Education, saying that they're going to be prioritizing early childhood development as well as schools with special needs. They're saying there that, even though the Department of Education is doing good when you're looking at the number the percentage it has gotten insofar as your matric result is concerned, but there's still a need to make sure that, early childhood development sector is also looked into so that, you match the number of learners that are matriculating when you're comparing them, or when you match them with the number of learners that begin school in the in public schools in the Eastern Cape. He also did mention how he is looking into investing or rather improving the state of road infrastructure in the Eastern Cape, saying that it's very important that this is looked into as it contributes greatly to exports and how business is brought to rural communities, saying in rainy weather conditions in the Eastern Cape, it's very difficult for business owners to move their stock or their commodities, and therefore it's very important that, they invest into roads infrastructure, saying that, they're also looking into the water infrastructure, because also there's one thing that they're experiencing there where, there's quite a lot of, inefficiencies when you're looking at the completion of projects. And they're saying that they want to be looking more into that. And they're saying they're doing good in some other areas in the Eastern Cape, but they want to make sure that they make it a point that everyone in the Eastern Cape gets water in their taps. We've been looking in areas like Yokomani, Tomo, where there's not been water there, and they're saying that they're going to be trying to improve those in those areas.
Okay, and Sidima, just lastly on that, did the Premier then, in terms of the wish list, provide a way forward in terms of the how it's going to be done? Because coming out of the budget speech that didn't happen, right? Budgets are seriously constrained. So did they path a way forward in terms of how they will do so?
Well, the Premier, in fact, this is what was one of the concerns of, the opposition parties that were at the state of, that were giving us their reactions post the address by the Premier. They were saying that even though there seems to be big money that is being mentioned to be invested in these various, industries and these projects, they're saying that there is no way how as to these are going to be improved. And they're saying that, because there doesn't seem to be a way as to how these are going to be improved, there's going to be quite a lot of, unaccountability insofar as, how much has been spent in what department and for what has been used for. But also the Premier did mention that, when you're looking at the Department of Health, where in the Eastern Cape it's got major problems like your medical claims and also infrastructure inefficiencies there. He did mention that now it's difficult for the province to move forth in terms of how much they're going to allocate in what department, because there has not been a budget speech that has been put forth by the finance minister. So we don't know really what are the prices in that regard.
Let's leave it at that. Sidima Mfeku, SABC's news reporter covering the Eastern Cape region. We'll get to the Free State after this.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, so the Eastern Cape's delivered their state of the province. What about the Free State? With me is Kamogelo Sikawi, who's the SABC News reporter covering the Free State region. Kamogelo, good to connect with you. What can you tell us in terms of what has been said and pronounced today?
Well, good afternoon to you, Ashraf. Today, the Premier spoke a lot about capacity, accountability, and skills development in all the different departments in the province as well as municipalities. You remember that in the Free State province, there's a lot of challenges in municipalities where we see deterioration of infrastructure. We see a lot of people actually complaining about service delivery issues in the different districts in the province. So the Premier today took some time to talk about that. However, opposition parties were actually saying that she did not touch at all issues of corruption and maladministration, which are, according to them, are the main reason why there are so many problems in the municipalities, where people go days and sometimes weeks without water, where people have electricity cuts way beyond issues of load shedding in the country. She did also touch on issues of electricity and how the province is planning to become the energy hub of the province, and they actually have money that has been invested in that area to ensure that there is a power mix in the province where they're going to develop solar plants as well as battery plants to ensure that electricity capacity is increased in the province. Those are some of the issues that were touched by the Premier today.
Okay. Did the Premier indicate what for the Free State are their biggest problems, the biggest, most urgent issues that needs the most urgent attention?
Well, the issue of municipality comes to mind. The issue of health is another area where she spoke about. She actually did mention that they have already received information that in some areas US aid is no longer coming through, and that there is a threat to jobs for 725 health workers in the province actually at the moment. The jobs are still there, but they are not safe because of this threat of funding that is not coming through. So that one is a big issue. But even when we were listening to the Premier's speech this morning, it did sound to us as journalists as well more of a repeat of what was said before. This morning we had a pre-SOPA interview with her, and she told us that she will be having a progress report more than anything. And in some areas it did sound like a progress report, although in many areas it just sounded like the same projects were being mentioned. In fact, the DA in their response said that the Premier was talking about the same roads projects that she mentioned in the previous SOPA, which was last year. She's talking about the same projects for the schools and the clinics and the hospitals that are being built and refurbished. But what is most important to note with what the Premier is saying is that these projects are not necessarily coming to completion. What happens is that you get contractors that are terminated because they are unable to complete a project, and then more money is allocated for that project, and then another contractor comes in. Okay. But the project takes longer to actually come to completion. So she did mention the projects. She did talk about the roads that are being refurbished or rebuilt from scratch. She did talk about the clinics and the fact that there's going to be an introduction of 24-hour clinic services in the province. But this is something that she has already said in the past. So we just wait to see.
Well, I mean, that's why measure year on year and see what finally happens, promises versus actual. Appreciate your time on that, Kamogelo. Thanks for that. Let's move on. In fact, what we'll do, there's another development that, I think certainly needs attention. You may have followed that story about those mudslides in KZN. There's an update on that, which we'll cover right after this.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit CFI.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45. Proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
Over the last 50 years, one man has played an unparalleled part in transforming British society. This man is Rupert Murdoch. Feared by politicians, Murdoch has built the biggest media operation on the planet. His empire has given him extraordinary power and influence. The rise of the Murdoch family is an electrifying study of the Murdoch dynasty, charting the ups and downs of an empire. From the ambition that fueled its success, to the criminality that led to the closure of the News of the World and the Leveson Inquiry. This is The Rise of the Murdoch Family. Thursdays at 10 p.m. starts 13 February, only on S3.
The giants of French rugby, Botope Claire and Clement Avogna, are fighting for a massive victory to cement top 5 positions. This is the top 14. Rugby the French way. Catch the huge contest between Botope Union Peclair and Clement Avogna on Sunday, 23 February at 10 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Did I tell you who's joining me on the fireside chat after 5? I don't think I have, so let me then tell you. Justice Dumisa Nsebeza, you know that person, you should. Justice of the African Court on Human and People's Rights and former head of the TRC Investigative Unit. Well, that Justice Dumisa has got a story to tell, I can tell you, and we're going to connect with him on the fireside chat, 5 to 6 p.m, coming up pretty shortly. Right, let's get to the issue of KwaZulu-Natal. Now, yesterday we spoke about the story of the deaths, I think it was 6 people, in the province, mainly caused by mudslides after the torrential rain that region has had. In fact, many parts of the eastern parts of South Africa have been affected by rains, I think, for well over a week, isn't it? Now, earlier today, the KZN MEC for Transport and Human Settlements, Siboniso Duma, went to visit families who had lost their loved ones. So really a sad visit, I would assume, right? Let's then, therefore, chat to the MEC for Transport and Human Settlements on the line. Yeah, I appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Baba Ashraf Garda. With your listeners at home, it's an honor for us to be given a platform in your Pulse.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I can tell you, of all the jobs that, an MEC does, in terms of looking after people, service delivery and leading communities, visiting families of loved ones people who've lost their loved ones in an accident of the type that we've just had, right, with regards to climate change, I would think, must be the most difficult of things to do.
Very true. It's always catastrophic, especially if you have someone that is going to go to his or her room, okay, fit and health. Then the following day, you must update the loved ones that he's no more because of the mudslides or because of emergency, because of an accident. So I think it's something that is painful. But we've been saying these days that each time when the weather service is giving us the update, we just have to adhere, because the majority of our province, you'll find that the south of Durban in particular, you've got some slopes, and the issue of the drainage system of eThekwini to such an extent has caused the damage, which is why on a day-to-day basis we're talking about the adaptation. The New York resolution on the issue of climate condition is updating us that when we do planning in terms of SPLUMA, the EIA, we must always ensure that we adhere to the environment, don't build on wetlands, on wetlog, on the river frontage. So I think it's something that from now onwards we must implement to the T in terms of the bylaws.
Well, I would have thought they would have done that already anyway, but we'll come back to that in a second. Perhaps maybe share with us some of your experiences of visiting those families who lost their loved ones. What was the connection with, in terms of the conversations you had at this incredibly difficult time?
Also, I must highlight the contrary, what is happening. You find that they've suddenly accepted. I don't know whether it's happening on MEC Duma, because on a regular basis we deal with accidents. They seem to be appreciating the role we do. Some will even laugh, some will even blame themselves. So I think it's something that is painful. So these catastrophes and these tragedies these days have taught us somehow to be closer to them, although in some instances, like for instance, the Mhlongo family, it's husband and wife. They just lost their lives. They were staying around the following era. So it's a painful thing that you lose the father and the mother in one day. So it means that the next day you find that you were just an elderly in that family, being the first born, but you are now the parent. So I think it's something that is strange, but we are always, because we've got a team of chaplains, abafundisi, that we always go with as part and parcel. Because, like for instance, one of the families, Nkwanyana families, his house is in the back room, in the township. Unfortunately, the mudslide just buried him alive. That sand was that harsh And it took the entire almost night to be understanding that process and assisting. So that, but in the morning, then we managed to resolve the problem.
All right. And in terms of you visiting, those people, of course, the survivors of those victims of it, did anybody say anything that you'd like to share?
Some will be saying that, as you might know, that especially if you've lost two people in the family, they don't have adequate resources, which is why we do try it. Like, for instance, 98 people have lost their houses around these 2 days. So it means that you must occupy the venue, the new venue, the halls. You must just provide them with food, provide them with blanket and all those things. But what they are sharing is that slowly they are attuned to the reality that when governments say that there will be rains from now onwards, they just have to adhere, because ordinarily people concentrate on social network without taking into cognizance that what the pattern of the weather is saying.
Okay.
So slowly but they are saying that it is the duty of the municipality that even these vehicles must also just loud hailed. It would be better in some instances, because some were not even aware that there will be these torrential rains, so they just realized that later. So I think that's the experience, a lived experience that we're currently
All right,
across.
and as we get to news time, so just very briefly, what type of support now in terms of relief is the KZN province offering? Either KZN or perhaps you may have other NGO relief NGOs supporting you. What sort of support are you offering? Not just the survivors, but certainly that region. Just very briefly in about 30 seconds.
I think we do the burial system, where the municipality must do the burial along with human settlements and other processes, providing blanket, buying groceries, and in some instances we had to utilize the strength of our TLBs just to clear the site. So far, that's what is happening, and it will always depend, because after that you'll find that they've lost everything. Take them to Home Affairs and all those things, provide the facility, the transport. So that's what we usually do, and it has been mainstreamed in that way, because our staff by now, the technocrats, are familiar with that specific processes that are required by the families.
Okay, let's leave it at that, Siboniso Juma, the MEC for Transport and Human Settlements in the KZN region. Thank you for giving off your time here on the National Pulse. Let's get straight to the news headlines with Ondela Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu says there has been a 3.3% reduction in reported rape cases. Mchunu has released the third quarter crime statistics in Pretoria. The UN Economic Commission for Africa Ambassador Clever Gatete says for Africa to experience development, the issue of peace and security must be dealt with decisively, and airlines have been altering flight paths to avoid an area between Australia and New Zealand because of live fire exercises by the Chinese Navy. A full update follows at the top of the hour with the Greg Hose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound and four ways is slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive exit. The M1 northbound in Sandton has a crash reported before Marlborough Drive. The N3 southbound in Germiston is queuing towards Geldenhuys interchange. The N1 northbound in Midrand queuing towards New Road, and Daspoort Tunnel northbound in Pretoria queuing at the tunnel. In KZN, the N3 westbound is queuing towards the Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. The N2 southbound has a stationary truck before the M41 Gateway exit. The N3 westbound has a stationary truck at Key Ridge and Umgeni Road westbound, slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is slow moving towards the R300 highway. The N1 outbound queuing as you approach Okavango Road. The N3 southbound is queuing towards Rhodes Drive, and the M5 northbound slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right to me, eye on Afghanistan.
Yes, Afghanistan currently sitting on 57 for 4 after 16 overs. They need 259 more runs to win in 33 overs. Remember, earlier on, South Africa posted 315 for 6 in their 50 overs in the Champions Trophy, and the Proteas had won the toss and they elected to bat first, with Ryan Rickleton top scoring with 103 of 106 balls. Then in rugby, the Vodacom Bulls have made a number of changes to their side to face the Emirates Lions in their Vodacom United Rugby Championship Yuske derby at Loftus Versfeld tomorrow. Sergio Peterson has been dropped to the bench as speedster Sebastian de Klerk returns to the side on the right wing. Then Kanan Moody shifts from the right to the left, while Harold Foster's injury means that David Grill will move from 13 to 12, with Stedman Gans returning to the backline at outside centre. Up front, the Bulls welcome back utility forward Kobus Visser, and Telimpilo Gumede has been given the 8 jersey for this game, and kick-off is at 2 p.m. In football, Cape Town City face a tough task as they look to win their first Betway Premiership game since January, when they face Orlando Pirates at the Orlando Stadium tomorrow. Pirates will be without Gabelo Dlamini, who is suspended for accumulating 4 yellow cards, while the Citizens' assistant coach Lebogang Manyama will return to the dugout after serving a 1-game suspension for receiving a yellow card. There's 3 other fixtures on the cards tomorrow. Mamelodi Sundowns hosting TS Galaxy. Sekhukhune United, who are not letting up on the title race, they are away to Chipa United, and Amazulu versus Magezi. However, we start off with tonight where Stellenbosch FC are up against Richards Bay. Then Premier League leaders Liverpool will face Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League last 16, and the winners of that tie will face Aston Villa or Club Brugge, the winner between them. Holders Real Madrid, who knocked out Manchester City in the knockout phase playoffs, face local rivals Atletico Madrid, and will meet the winner between Arsenal or PSV Eindhoven. Then Bayern Munich will play Bayer Leverkusen in an all-Germany affair, and the winner will face whoever wins between Feyenoord and Inter Milan, and Dortmund takes on Lille, and they face or whoever wins between them will face either Benfica or Barca. Now, in athletics South Africa Performance High Manager Ezekiel Sebeng believes that impressive performances of Prudence Khodiso and Tshepo Chite in Europe could inspire more South African athletes to compete in indoor events. Khodiso set a national record of 1.59.88 in the women's 800 meter, while Chite broke the men's mile record with a time of 3.54.10. As the duo prepare for next month's World Indoor Championships in China, Sebeng hopes that their record-breaking achievements will spark greater interest in indoor competition across the country.
People starting to know now that there's a national record there, then they will start getting interest of doing indoors and perform. Remember before, nobody knew what is this competition. We'll just hear that there's a competition, it's indoors. It was not put in front, where everybody now, because of Tepo and them, they are breaking the record. They are seeing them on TV live. I remember myself a long time ago, then they sending a team and I qualified for that team. I didn't know what is indoor. I had to go on the bridge, try and run the bend on the bridge just to get used to it. And but this nowadays, athletes can go over and you can see it. Some people are interested. You find somebody is fast in the 60 meters, and they're interested to do it. And I think it will increase and we will do well in future.
Meanwhile, in tennis, the Renault South Africa Davis Cup team will face Morocco on home soil in September as they look to take another step towards Group 1 of the international men's team competition. SA retained their place in World Group 2 earlier this month by beating Nigeria 3-1 in their playoff clash in Pretoria, and the winning team in the tie in September will compete in the World Group 1 playoffs early next year for a place in the World Group 1. Just a quick recap: Afghanistan now on 63 for 4 after 17 overs, needing 253 more runs from 32 overs. to win.
And ask me again if...
Do you think Afghanistan can do it?
No. Okay, more sport in an hour.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The Chili Boys have a top-class game plan to relocate from the bottom half. But Babina Noko prefer a position in the top 5. This is the Betway Premiership. United battles it out with United. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game. Chipa United FC versus Sikukune United FC. This Saturday, 22 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN OTP feature and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of CAPTCHA will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, it's Friday, but the numbers still matter. Paswane Mpatlele with me, Senior Accounts Manager at Markway Fund Managers. Paswane, let's get it. Local and global markets.
Afternoon, Ashraf, and to all your listeners, happy Friday, guys. Well, today it was more of a PMI day in the market where investors got to get to understand the health of the economy globally. We saw the likes of Eurozone business activity still in a expansion above 50, supported by growth in service sector, and manufacturing is showing signs of getting better as it is, despite being in a contraction. They're moving forward, getting closer and closer to that expansion road. Meanwhile, UK business activity remains under pressure as demand from local and foreign support falls and keeps the economy under pressure. On the pricing front, both economies are still seeing inflationary pressures. Meanwhile, when you look at the US, the outcome is still pending as we haven't seen the data yet. However, we expect it to be inflationary, although growth would be the key question. That has been the key question for the market till now. The market focus is also digesting the global issues such as geopolitical concerns, as we've seen change of narrative around the conversations, trade tariffs, uncertainty still going on, going into the weekend. This keeps the growth uncertainty, especially in the U.S., uncertain, with global bond yields seen in the U.S. down below 4.5. That's a key critical level, reflecting concerns. Dollar remains bearish to below 107. Oil prices are down 1.2% at $75.60 a barrel. Bearish. Gold is the bullish one, sitting at $2,933 an ounce. Local markets, following the volatility concerning the budget speech, they managed to eke out gains today, and it's still on a wait and see as they look for the latest catalyst to take them higher. JC holds up 0.1. Thanks to industrials and financials up 0.7. Resources have pulled back from their big gains down to 2.3%. US opened rather flat. We see Nasdaq was up 0.1, S&P flat, Dow down 0.6. Europe, foods and cake and DAX up 0.2, cake down cake up 0.3. Looking at the currency space, the rand sits at 18.33, which remains positive. Rand against the euro 19.20, and rand against the pound is at 20.38.
Okay, and that means your time's up. So you have a good weekend, Paswane. Thanks for connecting. We will chat to you, maybe, or Makwe on Monday. Thank you for your time, right?
Definitely.
Great weekend. Okay, right, we'll have another report on the markets coming up in about 50 minutes' time or so anyway. But shortly, two things. Your call's coming up very shortly, and remember, after 5 o'clock, we chat to Justice Dumisa Nsebeza. Looking forward to that conversation as part of the Friday Fireside Chat.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So the budget speech was supposed to happen. It didn't happen. There were lots of events around it in terms of possible reaction, in terms of, the breakfast that took place around it. Well, none of those things happened in terms of their brief, right? So what happens next? We know we've made the note. I've diarized it. Wednesday, March the 12th. But in the interim period, there are many organizations who have positions in terms of maybe some of the key lessons to learn from the budget speech, no budget speech. I would take it that one of them would be the Budget Justice Coalition. And with me is Mahfouz Rafi, who's a member of the Budget Justice Coalition and a researcher at Equal Education. So, Mahfouz, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Greetings to you and to your listeners, Ashraf. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ryan. So, first of all, what do you take out of the circumstances that led to the no budget speech?
Yes, look, I think there's two key things to highlight here, among many others perhaps. But what immediately stands out is first that Treasury for a long time has been seen as a sort of supra-ministry, kind of dictating, as it will, the budgets of many other departments and deciding on largely without due consultation the fiscal policy and trajectory of public purse. And that was immediately called into question when this budget had failed to be tabled due to disagreements. I think the other important thing to highlight, and that's been on everybody's lips as well, is the 2 percentage point VAT increase, which would have been a really grueling measure on particularly for environment.
Okay, I'll tell you what, we're just battling to hear you very clearly, so let me just put you on pause for a moment, Mahfouz, and let's see if we can sort that out. In the meantime, an update on that cricket. Afghanistan 74 for 4. Now, I did say they've got no chance to win. I think it's highly, highly unlikely. It'll probably need a partnership of 200 plus by two individuals to turn that game around. I don't think it's going to happen. Don't forget, tell your chommies too, Justice Dumisa Nsebeza is with me after 5. Remember, he's the Justice of the African Court on Human and People's Rights and the former head of the TRC Investigative Unit. He's my guest, and yours too, for an hour. Right, we do have Mahfouz Rafi back with us, right? Okay, we heard some of the thoughts you said. Would you then say that with hindsight, whatever the circumstances that led to the non-signing, that it was a good thing that it was actually not presented and therefore not accepted?
Look, it's poison chalice, I think, in many ways. What has been coming out in the public sphere is we're being presented with a false dichotomy, that it's either you take these VAT increases or you increase social spending. And I think the first thing for society all around, and certainly civil society, as we have been doing, is to reject that dichotomy. That it's not a matter of either or VAT increase and social spending. It's you can increase social spending and you can find alternative ways to increase government revenue. So I think insofar as this delay gives us that opportunity to present this and to encourage Treasury and government to take seriously those proposals, this is a good window. But unfortunately, I think where the appropriate and usual channel would happen for the public and for stakeholders to participate in the budget process in this way would be through Parliament, which is much more transparent, where debate is a bit more open. But now it's gone back to Cabinet, and we don't really know what exactly the substance of discussions are being had.
Of course, yeah.
Nonetheless, it is in the public sphere, and I think everyone has an interest in the way public money is spent because it is their money. And so we should be advocating as far as possible for increased public spending and for alternative ways to find
Now the Budget Justice Coalition, of course, you guys talk about a people's budget. So explain, what does a people's budget mean?
Certainly. I mean, I think there are numerous components to this. But first and foremost, it's centered in constitutional socioeconomic rights. So we demand a human rights-centered budget because, after all, that is what the economy is meant to be doing. And then, secondly, I think an important component of this is transparent, inclusive, and participatory budgeting processes. Because, as I mentioned earlier, public money should be spent in the public good, and the public should have a say in how that's spent.
Okay. And just lastly, I mean, in terms of, you're not the only organization, but there are many that actually are pressure groups who do talk about, a people's budget or a very just budget, and find that a people's budget or a just budget at this point in time is very absent from our society. And I speak on the back of yesterday being, Social Justice Day, and you find that there's an absence of conversation about what social justice is anyway, right? But here's my point coming out of all of that, right? How much of, say, do activists and activist organizations, civil society, have in terms of influencing what finally is decided? And in this case, I mean, the fact that you've got 2 weeks or so to be able to influence change, can that happen?
Certainly, it's signs are not promising. What we heard Minister Enoch Godongwana just a couple of days ago mentioned is delivered 4 budget speeches, and every budget speech there have been protests, and he kind of dismissed and laughed off the concerns of the public. And this is really unfortunate. I work at Equal Education, and we see the conditions that learners are subjected to because of a lack of public funding in schools. Learners, some cannot go to school because there's no water at schools. Some cannot access school nutrition. There's not enough textbooks. We know the problems of pit latrines. They're going to miss the deadline again. And this needs public money. This needs a government and a fiscal policy that will take these issues seriously. And unfortunately, it's really disheartening that we have people in power who do not appear to have the political will to humanize the people that they are meant to humanize, and to protect the rights that they're meant to protect.
So just the last thing,
it's important.
Yeah, just then to wrap up, I mean, in terms of your proposal about this, pro-poor budget, right? What would it be if the options that government has, as per the minister, to say either increase revenues, which means increase tax, or actually cut service delivery? How should they go about doing so?
So, yeah, definitely. There's numerous ways that they can increase revenues. I think the most immediate one, because of the time constraint, would be to draw again on the gold and foreign exchange contingency reserve account. So far, they've used about 150 billion from that, but there's over 500 billion in surplus reserves there, and so they can immediately draw on that. But there's a lot of other channels. They can cancel medical aid tax rebates, which would generate about 30 billion. They can find ways, because some government entities owe other government entities money, and finding ways to alleviate pressure on debt in that way would help. The SARS Commissioner has mentioned others. So there's numerous progressive channels that would not hurt the poor as much as a VAT increase would, that the government needs to implement. Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Mahfouz Rafi, thank you for your time. Mahfouz is a researcher at Equal Education, but speaking in this case here on behalf of, as a member of the Budget Justice Coalition. Now, pro-poor is what they say. Will they get what they want, or will they get what we want? This is the National Pulse.
Hey there! Need to know your TV license balance but don't want to wait? No sweat! Just send a quick SMS with your ID or TV license number to 44210. Remember, standard SMS rates apply. And presto, your balance pops right up anytime, anywhere. It's as easy as pie. So why procrastinate? Give it a try and get your info in a flash. T's and C's apply.
Defending WAFCON champions are tackling Mehaladi Idwe in another glittering international friendly. Both nations describe their first match as the first half. Will Banyana Dr. Ellis dominate this 90 minutes, or will the beautiful flowers conquer the pitch battle? Witness the on-field grudge between Abu Makelwa, South Africa versus Lesotho on Tuesday, 25 February at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 2. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM would like to thank everyone that submitted their entries for the playwriting competition. The announcement of the top 10 and winners of the competition will be announced on the 3rd of March 2025 on The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana. Stay tuned to SAFM and find out who is the lucky winner. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, 25-year-old Chanel loves Outsurance Essential. Well, because it's low-cost insurance designed for older cars. Now, for her 2012 Hyundai, that's Hyundai i10 1.2, she only pays 458 Rand a month. With Outsurance Essential, you get up to 1 million in liability cover. That means if you cause an accident, the other car could be covered for up to 1 million rands. Now, add even more value with motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical, electrical breakdowns. Get savings with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rands. SMS car to 43187. You got that car? 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's, and information online.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, we've got a fabulous guest coming up after 5 o'clock as part of the Friday Fireside chat. Here's a comment, someone saying, how can I listen to the show via from Zimbabwe? And I do miss Facts of Faith. Well, in terms of listening to the show, the best way to do it is via streaming live. Go to SAFM, the website, safm.co.za. Then there's a tab that says Listen Live. So that's how you do it. You can also go download the SABC Plus app. It's a fabulous app. Download the app, and then you should be able to listen. Also, if you go to the website, you'll find there are sections for all the podcasts, and they're all done into show categories. So if you go to safm.co.za, then podcast, then SA, in this case, the National Pulse, you'll find some of the key interviews that we've done. Hopefully you listen to all of those things. Right, let's get reaction from you. Firstly, regarding murders.
7,000 murderers, and I bet you the police minister is going to get a performance bonus. That's how low the bar is, even in the Cyril Ramaphosa's government. He's going to get a performance bonus. And then you ask yourself, but I pay so much in income tax. What am I getting back from this country? We've got SAPS that only work when the crime goes viral. We've got all of these criminals that can bribe Amapoyisa. I hope he doesn't get a performance bonus.
Okay, well, I don't know whether you will. Let's see what happens when it happens, isn't it? And maybe remind me.
Hi, Ashraf. This is the follow-up answer. You were asking about which constitution, which part of the constitution they must change. They must just amend the constitution so that the criminals will know that once you kill someone, you forfeit your constitutional rights of living, because you also took away the rights of someone to live. This is what I'm asking for. This is Jacob in Limpopo, Mokopanes, Kakapi.
Okay, there we are. So that's that point. Let's get further reaction. And perhaps others can talk about on the back of that comment, right, about the constitutional changes, whether that's enough.
Ashraf, good afternoon, man. Flores from the beautiful Western Cape. Ashraf, it's going to be a massively beautiful day if we can get our crime numbers down. But just to be blunt, we just live in a violent society. There will always be these violent elements amongst us in any society. So, yeah, but we can just hope. Have a good show. Bye-bye.
Thank you for that. Right, another comment about Zimbabwe.
Yeah, good day, SAFM listeners. Saranda speaking here. Yeah. You know, in my country, Zimbabwe, when you ask something, it's a crime. When you complain, it's a crime. When you challenge the state, it's a crime. When you complain, it's a crime. Whatever that you do, the police will always lock you up. So I don't know what to do next. I think the next thing is M23. That's the only way out.
M23. Another comment on foreign soldiers.
You know, my brother, I don't know South Africa is aware that here in South Africa we live with foreigner soldiers. There is Lesotho soldiers here. There is Zimbabwean soldiers here in South Africa. I don't know. But what we can say, South Africa, weak country.
What do you mean when you say Lesotho and Zimbabwe soldiers? Are they serving in the South African army? We should be more clear on that. Another one saying, thank you for playing my voice note. Happy Friday. Got that. By the way, I haven't forgotten, in terms of the conversation we had yesterday regarding, people coming up with ideas regarding funding now. Clearly, it's an issue that we need to consider and see what comes out of it. Let's just see what happens next week. But in the meantime, not so much how much you'll pledge. We don't want that. But if you've got a solid idea how to be able to fundraise and mobilize and try and support the many South African tertiary students who are battling to finish their tertiary education because of a lack of finance, then come up with your ideas, and certainly willing to have a look at it. studio@safm.co. So that's the email, studio@safm.co.za. Right, there's more comments. One is about hospitals.
Good evening, Ashraf, and to the listeners. Ashraf, this evening I just want to bring to the attention of the National Pulse and all the listeners and everybody listening, more especially people with authority in the health department and in government, the terrible treatment of patients at All Saints Hospital in Ngobo. People sleeping on the floor and things like that. People are treated very, very badly in that hospital. And then I hope that something can be done to remedy the situation.
All right, I'll tell you what, we've had just far too many problems around the shocking, ICU-level states of our hospitals. That's what it is. Let me just get Keys and Temba to listen to that and maybe make a note and see if we can follow up next week on that issue. I think we need to speak to the authorities, the hospital authorities, not the Minister of Education. That hospital, let them tell us exactly where they are. We really need to do that. In fact, if you can identify any area in the country, and I'm talking about Cape Town to Kakamas, where there's serious service delivery shortages, let us know and let's see if we can follow that up and speak to the relevant person in charge, because I think we do need answers.
Good afternoon, SAFM and to listeners. It's Sullivan Governor from Durban. Ashraf, I'd like to suggest to the government with regard to getting some tax, the government needs to put stringent effects on the illicit cigarette trade, because these cigarettes are coming into a market and tax is not being paid. So the government need to put more stringent into effects, try and get these illicit cigarettes out and get the cigarette companies to start paying tax. This is a way we can increase our tax revenue.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've certainly heard that story before. Here's the last one I can play.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, AfriForum and DA, they must know if they destroy ANC, MK and EFF are governments in waiting. They must know that. They must be prepared to see EFF and MK in power. Roman from Brixton.
Well, they don't want it, isn't it? Who else wants them in power? Just a question to you, right? Okay, so that's it for now. Now remember, after 5 o'clock, being a Friday, we have the fireside chat, and my guest is Justice Dumisa Nsebeza. You may remember him as the former head of the TRC investigative unit. So 60 minutes thereabouts with him. Do join us on the fireside chat. Let's get the news now. It's Greg Host. It's 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf, and a good afternoon to you. A drop in reported rape cases and peace in Africa will boost development. Good day. The Police Minister, Senzo Mchunu, says there's been a 3.3% reduction in reported rape cases. He released the third quarter crime figures in Pretoria today. He says, however, there was an increase in some of the provinces.
Rape cases have increased in KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga and the Free State, whereas other provinces have recorded decreases. This data serves as a stark reminder that gender-based violence remains a critical issue requiring intensified interventions.
The minister also raised concern over the attempted murder of young children and teenagers. He said while they've registered an overall reduction in contact crimes against women, they're deeply concerned by the increase in attempted murder cases against children. He says it's an alarming development that calls for a concerted effort to protect the most vulnerable members of our society. Police have recovered the body of a 9-year-old boy at the site of a possible illegal electrical connection at an informal settlement in Soshanguve, north of Pretoria. This after the boy's mother reported him missing. Police spokesperson Dimakatsane Baulwi.
The police have opened an inquest docket following the recovery of a body of a 9-year-old boy who was reported missing by his mother at Rietgat police station on the early hours of the 21st of February 2025. His lifeless body was recovered on the same day at about 10 a.m., lying on a pile of possible illegal electrical connection at an informal settlement in Soshanguve Block X. His body was electrocuted and he was certified dead by Emergency Medical Services.
The UN Economic Commission for Africa Ambassador Claver Getete says for Africa to experience development, the issue of peace and security must be dealt with decisively. He says instability in Africa derails many initiatives aimed at improving the economy. He spoke to the SABC on the sidelines of the G20 foreign ministers meeting in Johannesburg.
Peace and security are a prerequisite. We cannot only talk about development without looking at the issues of peace, because there's a nexus between the two. And that's why we need to take them on both at the same time. In the Sahel, in the DRC, in Sudan, and in other parts, just on Africa, but also globally, they have implications. The effect, for example, of the Russia-Ukraine war, it had an impact on us, although it was not on our continent, and that's why the G20, the biggest bloc that you have, can be able to address these kind of issues.
Airlines have been altering flight paths to avoid an area between Australia and New Zealand because of live-fire exercises by the Chinese Navy. Australian carrier Qantas temporarily changed some of its routes. China's insisted the Navy drills are safe and taking place in international waters, but Australia's Foreign Minister says she will raise concern with China about a lack of transparency. The top story, the police minister says there's been a 3.3% reduction in reported rape cases in the country. For SAFM News, I'm Greg Khos.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Afghanistan 95 for 5 after 24 overs, needing 221 in 26 overs to win against South Africa. Haaland a doubt for City showdown with Liverpool, and Ellis to use Lesotho clash to check readiness of her youthful squad. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 northbound in Melrose has a crash reported near Athol Oaklands Road. The M1 southbound is queuing through Crown Interchange towards Boysons. The N1 northbound in Midrand queuing towards New Road. And the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a crash reported after Garsfontein Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N3 westbound queuing towards Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. The N2 southbound has a stationary truck before the M41 Gateway exit reported. And on the N3 westbound, a crash reported at Key Ridge. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound slow moving towards the N1 Koeberg interchange. Slow moving traffic reported in that central Stellenbosch area, so expect delays. And Oakapseweg in Turkey has a crash reported at Steenberg Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Ever since Uspilion won 5,000 rand, 5 tower on Wheel of Fortune, he only wears white push-in sandals. Star white, Baba. And he owns 10 identical pairs. Before he did not even know the Queen's language. Now, Kalabo, wow. Chance. Let's watch Wheel of Fortune weekdays, Monday to Friday at 7:30 on S3 and see how one spin changed Billion's life and how it can change ours as well in just one day.
Borussia Dortmund and FC Union Berlin are both searching for a decent position in the top half. They have a big battle for maximum points. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch Borussia Dortmund FC versus FC Union Berlin on Saturday, 22 February at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit cfi.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45. Proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So interesting. The moment I said I'm going to be chatting to Justice Dumisa Nsebeza, we already had one or two people saying, what about the TRC? It seems like almost that's an issue that, doesn't escape certain people because the brand is so strong in terms of the brand connection. Because my guest was the former head of the TRC investigative unit. But anyway, on a Friday, it's all about the fireside chat. So we talk about a range of issues, some very current affairs, very topical issues, some moments of fun, some moments of trivia as well, if they all come up, right? All of that up to 6 o'clock. And you can join us. We often take maybe 2-3 calls maximum, not quite now, but later on. But you certainly can join in by just listening to the show. And I hope you're going to enjoy all of this, right? So then with me, Justice Dumisa Nsebeza, thank you for your time and agreeing to sign up here on the fireside chat.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Sharaf. And I'm pleased to be here.
Yeah.
And
and I understand "yeah" for you actually means Ethiopia, because you're not in studio with me. You're in Ethiopia right now, yeah?
No, I am actually in Tanzania.
Are you in Tanzania?
The seat of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. That is where that court sits. It's a continental court, and it has a mandate to protect and promote the rights virtually of people who claim their rights, which are enshrined in the Charter, are protected and are promoted.
Okay. And I take it, that's what you're spending most of your time with these days as the Justice of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, yeah?
Well, not exactly. It's the president of the court. This court is made up of 11 judges. And you can imagine that each judge has an opinion. But in terms of the appointments of the judges here, only the president of the court is on a full-time basis. The rest of us, the other 10, come here to be here in sessions, and each session lasts for a month. For instance, this session, tapering to an end, lasted for the whole month of February. The next session will be in June, same thing. The next other session will be in September, same thing. And the last one of the year will be in November, December. So 4 sessions in a year, all of those sessions lasting 1 month a year, 1 month per session for the rest of the judges. But the president, if for instance, I were to be elected by my peers to be a president of this court, I would have to relocate to Tanzania.
Okay.
Because I have to be full-time here.
Not quite yet then, right? Perhaps share with us, what do you do when you spend these months at this particular court? I see the title, it seems to be self-explanatory, but perhaps maybe you can expand on that in terms of the actual work you do when you are in Tanzania.
Well, virtually every day we consider applications. Applications are brought by applicants, obviously, against respondent states. And those applications are alleging violation of all sorts of human rights which are enshrined in the Charter. The Charter, you must imagine, a constitution, it's something like the South African Constitution, where several rights and freedoms are enshrined. For instance, here, one of the cases that we have been involved with and in which I took a dissenting view was the right to life and the right to dignity. They all are around the imposition of the death sentence. I am in the minority there because, I will tell you one day or even today why my attitude towards the imposition of the death sentence is not influenced by the fact that in South Africa, in Magwanyane, the Constitutional Court ruled that the death sentence was unconstitutional. Even before that.
Okay.
Maybe let me say.
Well, maybe tell us that. I'll tell you why. We've been speaking now. There's the usual crime stats, and I believe the crime stats in South Africa has come down a bit. But again, many people saying, we need to revisit the Constitution in terms of what it pronounces regarding the death sentence as a major deterrent around our very high, violent. I'm talking about murder rate. Okay. So explain your thoughts regarding that.
Well, I've heard that, and I don't think it's for the first time. I think even at the time that the Constitutional Court came with Magwanyane, and Chaskalson was the president of the court, Chief Justice nowadays, in nowadays terms. He had actually, from what I have gathered, and if you read Magwanyane, realizing the controversy around the imposition of the death sentence, he had actually asked each and every one of those judges who sat with him to write independently their own opinions. And it is one case where there was no dissension. But in spite of that, each judge wrote their own view. Now, that's number one. Number two, you will know that during the apartheid period, a lot of those who were sentenced to death were sentenced to death more for the color which they were than for the offenses which they had committed. Some of the judges, and the judges were only one race, they were white judges, where, they even got the distinction of being called hanging judges. I won't mention names here, but there are people who do know who those hanging judges were. Now, so even as an activist before 1996, I remember there was a debate in the Black Lawyers Association where I, at one stage, was president. We debated this case, the question of the imposition of the death sentence in a number of ways. And one of the things that I indicated was, was for me taking the position against the death sentence. Most of those who were sentenced to death in South Africa were poor people, were people who could not afford your B's or C's or all of those bright judges. That's number one. Number two, there was no evidence that there was deterrence. People who murdered other people or people who committed crimes which attracted the death sentence did not do so because they had in mind that they would be hanged. Some of them did not even know that there was something called a death sentence which was mandatory. The judge, and that's the third point. The judge, it was mandatory. If the judge finds a person guilty of murder or of a sentence, of a crime that attracted the death sentence, rape, this, and the next thing, then they were mandated by the law to pass the death sentence. And this is what was happening even here.
Of course.
So I have said that is one of the reasons why I would be one of the dissenters. But just lastly on this point, when we appeared before Judge Munich in 1976, there were 5 of us. It was I, my brother, Matthew Goniwe, Slinger and Koposi. The judge president, who was then the judge president in the Transkei, though we were still under the Republic of South Africa, was GLL Munich. He said to the Attorney General who was putting the case before him, he said, Mr. Attorney General, I see that only 2 of these accused persons have been, are going to be represented. I would suggest that for the remaining 3, they must try and get rodeo defense, because on looking at the offenses for which they are being charged, I can see that the death sentence is competent.
Okay, wow.
That really sobered all of us.
I'm sure it did. We are chatting to Justice Dumisa Nsebeza, who's he's the Justice of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, and is also the former head of the TRC investigative unit, and is my guest on the Friday Fireside Chat, and you're part of it as well, so glad that you've joined us as well. Let's talk about the TRC and your role there. And again, it's interesting, even today, when we mentioned that we're talking to you, we sort of getting people like, hey, that's great, what a great judge, right? But others are like, that TRC thing just didn't work out. On reflection, what do you think?
Yeah, no, look, I don't want to appear to be defending myself because I was one of the truth commissioners. What people miss is the difference between the TRC and its objectives, aims and objectives, and the implementation of their recommendations. You will know that the TRC had a 2-year span period. They were to begin on a given date in 1996, and they were given 18 months with an option to get a further 6 months. So at the end of it, there were 24 months that they were given. But in that time, so much was unearthed, but so much needed further investigation, further follows up. And that is where the question must be asked. In fact, when in 2003, the Amnesty Committee, wound up, because even though it was one of the committees that had started with us in 1996, when we started the work of the TRC, and at the end of 1990, all the other committees folded up. The Amnesty Committee, the only quasi-judicial committee in the TRC, and the only committee which had, as a matter of law, to determine or to rule or to judge the applications of those who are applying for amnesty, had to do so. And because it was a quasi-judicial process, because it was taking longer, they had to go on, and they went on until 2003. Now, in 2003, they said, this is what we have found. These are the people who either did not get amnesty because they came there and they told the tissue of lies. They are people who did not get amnesty because they never applied for amnesty.
Okay.
Then the recommendation in 2003 was that they should be prosecuted, because the law had said all those people who feel that they had been involved in gross violations of human rights and therefore they needed, to apply for amnesty or to be granted amnesty, then they should come. Some didn't come because they felt that they didn't,
All right, I'll ask you about perhaps the lesson to learn from the TRC. We'll do that in a moment, chatting to Justice Dumisa Nsebeza. He's with me up to 6 o'clock as part of the Friday Fireside Chat.
Defending WAFCON champions are tackling Mehaladitwe in another glittering international friendly. Both nations describe their first match as the first half. Will Banyana Dr. Ellis dominate this 90 minutes, or will the beautiful flowers conquer the pitch battle? Witness the on-field grudge between Abu Makelwa South Africa versus Lesotho on Tuesday, 25 February at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 2. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game, the whispers in the morning as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection, and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness, and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'cause I'm your lady and you are my
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Well, continue to chat to my guest as part of the Friday Fireside Chat, Justice Dumisa Nsebeza. Right. Interestingly enough, and I want to just pick this up, I was looking at this, it's quite amazing. I chatted to you in 2013. Now, in that period, you moved on, I moved on, and then come back to SAFM, and then I find this quote, and in the quote, it says, well, you're saying, I am totally dissatisfied with the process of the TRC. So that was said in 2013. Yeah? Any thoughts on that? I think we've just lost contact with my guest in a moment. Okay, we'll try and sort that out as soon as can we? You still there?
I'm back.
All right,
yes,
I'm there. Did you hear what I said? I said that I picked up a quote of yours on the show that I interviewed you in 2013, and you said I'm totally dissatisfied with the process of the TRC. You still stand by that?
I clearly was meaning to say I'm totally dissatisfied with the process of the TRC to the extent that there is now no execution of the decisions of the Amnesty Committee, especially after 2003. Okay. It's one of those where,
And I mean, and you still stand by that. I mean, would that be one of the big disappointments that, you know, people went through the processes and then there were some recommendations made and decisions, and not many of them significantly were not carried through?
It's a betrayal. In fact, you will know that just recently, about 2-3 years ago, I was appointed with junior counsel to, recommend or give an opinion on the measures that ought to be taken by the NPA in relation to the TRC-related cases. And my opinion is there for everybody to see. One of the recommendations I made, precisely because was that we need to have a specialized commission of inquiry. Because I take it that South Africans are fatigued with commissions of inquiry, Zondo, this, that. So but I said this commission of inquiry, because there was a claim that came with that, with those people who came before me, who were in the NPA, your Ackermans, your Vusi Pikoli, and Makadam didn't appear before me then, but I know. They said, we wanted to prosecute. And they mentioned a minister of Justice at that time, Bridget Mabandla by name, said, we were told by Bridget that we must lay off these TRC-related cases. Then I said, are you sure? Then in this NPA brief which I had, you will, if you read that report that, I and Shaista Kazi, put together, you will see that we make a strong recommendation that there must now be an investigation of the extent to which the so-called political interference took place, because these people were making a case that we were politically interfered with.
So you're saying that there was political interference. I mean, and for what end was there political interference?
That's exactly what I say this commission of inquiry must probe. It must have the power of search and seizure. It must have the power of subpoenaing witnesses. If, for instance, Bridget Mabandla might claim that it was at the behest of the president of the time, at that time, the President Thabo Mbeki, then it would only be fair to Thabo Mbeki to come and say, to be subpoenaed, to come to that inquiry and say, was there political interference during your presidency? Because this is a claim that is being made by very senior NPA, executives, not executives, functionaries, people who were in the prosecuting authority, who were saying, we had these cases, we wanted to prosecute them. All these TRC-related cases, but we're told, stay away.
Do you think, and just quickly before we get to news time, do you think the fact that these recommended prosecutions did not happen, what impact has that had on South Africa now that we reflect on it in 2025?
It has undermined the rule of law. It has made people go away who were being accused of having committed heinous crimes. In fact, the tragedy of all of this lack of prosecution, you must think, from 2003, when this report was made, that there are now 300 cases. Some of them only need further investigations. Some of them need prosecution. And the South African government or the NPA have not told us what was standing in the way of either further investigations of those cases from 2003, when the report came out, or for the prosecution of those where the evidence was there. What has since happened? Those people who were highly implicated in those cases, people who had even murdered, a sister of Nkadimeng, Minister Nkadimeng, who, her sister, Nokuthula Simelane, was brutally murdered. She was, I tell you, that woman was tortured. And we don't even know where she ended up.
Sure.
So it's terrible. That is why I did not hide what my thinking was. If there is claim of political interference, let this thing be dealt with once and for all. South Africans need to know. And even those who are blaming the TRC will actually realize that it was the TRC in the form of the AMLE 2003 produced a report that says 300 culprits. These are 300 cases which need further investigation and more.
I'll tell you what, you've delivered some bombs there, and I would like to think that we need to pick up those conversations next week and get some answers around that. We are chatting to Justice Dumisa Nsebeza, and we continue talking to him as part of the Friday Fireside Chat. I want to go back to his journey, where it all started, and we'll do that in a few minutes' time. But first things first, here's the news headlines with Greg Gross.
Ashraf, a quick look at the headlines. The KZN Department of Cooperative Governance says the death toll of people who've lost their lives due to heavy rains and mudslides in the province now stands at 7. The police minister says there's been a 3.3% reduction in reported rape cases. And surgeons in the UK have developed a new technique to save the sight of young children born with a rare genetic condition that causes blindness. More on that story and other news at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in four ways is queuing towards Winnie Mandela Drive exit. The M1 northbound in Sandton has a crash before Marlborough Drive. In Pretoria, the R21 Nelson Mandela Drive southbound has a crash near Johan Rizig Drive, and Mabopane Highway northbound has delays towards Theo Martins. In KZN, the N2 southbound, there's a crash as well as a stationary truck before the M41 Gateway exit. The N2 southbound has a crash near Queen Nandi Drive. The N3 westbound is queuing towards Cliffdale, and the M4 northbound has a crash reported near the M41 interchange. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. The N1 outbound has a crash before Plattekloof Road. The N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound slow moving towards Voortrekker Road, and on Oudtshoornweg there's a crash at Steenberg Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Jimmy, of course we're talking about South Africa, Afghanistan, aren't we?
Yes, and Afghanistan, the last time I checked, were on 136 for 6 after 31 overs. They need 180 runs in 18 overs rather. And Kagiso Rabada with the highest wicket so far at 3. Lungingidi, Vian Mulder and Marco Jansen a wicket each. Earlier on, South Africa posted 315 for 6 in their 50 overs. Earlier, the Proteas won the toss, electing to bat first. Ryan Rickleton top scoring with 103 of 106 balls. Themba Bavuma, Rassie van der Dussen and Aiden Markram all smashing solid half centuries, hitting 58, 52 and 52 respectively. In rugby, the Blitzboks are back in action this weekend at the Vancouver Sevens tournament. South Africa opened their Vancouver challenge with a match against New Zealand tonight, and that is around 2 minutes past 10 South African time. Co-captain MP Visser says that the SA Sevens team are quite keen to right the wrongs of last season. The Blitzboks are currently 4th in the standings after picking up 10 points in Dubai, 20 points as the winners in Cape Town, and 14 in Perth towards the end of last month. They finished 9th in Vancouver last season. In football, Banyana coach Desiree Ellis says that she hopes the 2 friendly international matches against Lesotho will indicate where her youthful side is in terms of readiness. The African champions are currently in camp, where Ellis has selected mainly under 17 and under 20 women's national team players to assess them ahead of the CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations in July in Morocco. Ellis says that she intentionally didn't bring any senior players so the young ones don't feel any pressure.
Look, we want to see players play. Let's make no mistake, because that's the only way that you can see whether they can step up. Training shows you that they can do something. And sometimes players don't perform in training and people expect the players to play, but it starts at training. So we're hoping to see the players play, and then for them to show us what they're capable of doing, and if they can be added immediately or whether we need to call them in again and monitor them over a period of time, because people think I go to games because I want to be seen on TV, but I can watch the game on TV. You know, I want to see what's happening on the field. I want to see all the actions when players lose the ball. What are their reactions when coaches speak to them? What are their reactions? I want to see all of that, because it's not just about talent, it's about attitude, it's about everything, because we need the whole package, you know, we need the whole package. And we purposely didn't bring in any of the senior players because we didn't want to put the players under pressure. We wanted them to feel that, you know, they need to step up without there being any pressure. And that is the only way we can make the core group bigger.
Well, there's some Betway Premiership action to look forward to today. Stellenbosch FC, they're hosting Richards Bay, while the match between Royal AM versus Kaizer Chiefs have been postponed. Remember, Royal AM fixtures have been postponed indefinitely because of that issue that they have with SARS. Tomorrow, Cape Town City face a tough task as they look to win their first Betway Premiership game since January, when they face Orlando Pirates at the Orlando Stadium. Pirates will be without Gabelo Dlamini, who is suspended for accumulating 4 yellow cards, while the Citizens assistant coach Lebogang Manyama will return to the dugout after serving a 1-game suspension for receiving a yellow card. Other 3 fixtures tomorrow: Mamelodi Sundowns hosting TS Galaxy, Sekhukhune United, who are not letting up on the title race, are away to Chippa United, and Amazulu versus Magezi. Then the Europa League draw has taken place and was done today, with Tottenham Hotspur facing AZ Alkmaar, and the winner of that facing Ajax and Eintracht Frankfurt. Manchester United are up against Real Sociedad. They will take on FCSB or Lions, the winner of those two, and Rangers will challenge Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce, and the winner of that will face Roma or Athletic. In the Champions League draw, Premier League leaders Liverpool will face Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League last 16, and the winners of that tie will face Aston Villa versus Club Brugge, and then holders Real Madrid, who knocked out Man City in the knockout phase playoffs, face local rivals Atletico Madrid and will meet the winner between Arsenal and PSV Eindhoven. Bayern Munich will play Bayer Leverkusen in an all-Germany affair, and the winner will face whoever wins between Feyenoord and Inter Milan, with Dortmund taking on Lille and will face either Benfica or Barcelona. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. Ashraf, what are you busy with this weekend?
So this is my plan. My sister's here from Canada. I've been talking about that.
Still.
So, yeah, she's going in 2 weeks' time, maybe longer. They want to escape the cold. Who wants to go back to minus, 20 degrees or something
Problems
like
of
that?
People with money.
So we're having them for lunch tomorrow, and then on Sunday we go to a lunch that another sister has. So it's family, getting together.
Nice.
In between that, I'll watch sport, and I will play paddle, weather permitting, Sunday morning, 6:30 a.m., and I will watch that Man City Liverpool game. I must watch that, right?
Yeah.
That's my weekend. Yours?
I'm actually doing the Banyana and Lesotho match.
Oh, so
tomorrow.
you're working. All right. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Good.
That's
and
me.
You've got so you're going to swap your cricket top for your banana top.
Banana top, yes.
And bring the cricket top on Monday, please, eh?
Definitely. The new one, right?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, yeah. All right, you can ask me again whether Afghanistan will win.
Well, looking at where they are right now, 137 for 6 after 32 overs. Do you think they're going to win?
No. Bye.
Well, that's it.
Okay, Lehasa, we are recording 3, 2, 1, go.
A cold case is opened 39 years later after the body of a young man is discovered in a derelict building. There are 4 suspects. Suspect 1, a clergyman. Suspect 2, an eminent entrepreneur.
Those people are always shady.
Suspect 3, a community worker.
Hey, what are you saying?
And suspect 4, a wheelchair-bound husband caring for his wife.
Hey, and Nevele, you can't.
Each has a secret to hide. As their lies unravel, the people that they love the most begin to wonder what else they might be capable of. Nothing in this case is black and white. Can you ever really know the people closest to you? What secrets have they buried? Tune into Unforgotten Season 1, Monday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Starts 24 February only on S3. Tabo, don't tell me that the script freaked you out. Where are you?
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m. Weekend Sundowner Classics.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Okay, the last time we talked money on, this week, Jimmy Muyaha, what have you got?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. It seems as though yesterday's hero has become today's villain when we look at some of the equity sectors in the local markets. But let's start with international markets first. They would have been trading, of course. Some of them, in the case of Asian markets, would have been trading before our markets. The Hang Seng was up almost 4%, 3.8% in the green there. Shanghai index is 0.8% up. If we look at European markets, they were a bit of a mixed bag, with the CAC 40 in France finishing in positive territory, while the FTSE and the DAX finished in negative territory. In terms of the Nasdaq, that's down about 0.25% at the moment. The S&P is down about 0.3%. And when we look at our own local markets, resource counters that were up yesterday, north of 3%, seemingly having a bearish or a red day rather, closing out the day 2.6% in the red. Industrials came to the party. They were up about 2/3%. The financial sector stocks 0.8% in the green. In Austria and the top 40 finishing marginally stronger, but basically flat. And when we look at the rand, $1 will now cost you 18 rand and 33 cents. It was at one point closer to 18 rand and 30 cents today. One British pound, 23 rand 16. 1 euro, 19 rand and 17. 1 Australian dollar, 11 rand and 68 cents. A quick look at Brent crude prices, $75.47 a barrel, slightly better than where we were this time yesterday. In terms of the markets, or what's coming up next week, rather, the markets are going through their final trading week of the month of Feb. As it stands, the top 40 is up about 5%, or a little bit closer to 6%. We'll keep an eye on that and see where we close out for the month. But for now, back to you, Ashraf.
Okay, perfect. So you have a great weekend, Jimmy, and we will connect on Monday, yeah? Perfect. That's it. No SFM market update today, of course. You know, there's a whole review of the week coming out from 6 to 7. We do have sport 7 to 8. Let's get back then to, I suppose, a review of the life of Justice Dumisa Nsebeza as part of the Friday Fireside Chat.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right now, you know, there's a chance we can probably take, 3 audience engagements. So whether you want to WhatsApp or call in, you can do that. So ideally, it's very much around just if you know my guest personally, it'll just great if you can share an anecdote. I mean, that would be wonderful. 086 000 2032. Otherwise, you can WhatsApp 0614 104 107. I think we just lost connection just for the moment, so we'll try and pick that up as soon as we can. In the meantime, I tell you what, I got some news regarding Wits University. We've been talking about issues regarding students and registration. Well, Wits have now issued a statement. And the statement says, following a meeting between management and the SRC, they've agreed on the following. The university will extend the registration deadline to close off business on Tuesday, the 25th of February. So there's still a few more days more. As far as resources allow and subject to approval by a joint task team set up by the parties, it was agreed that the registration of undergraduate academically deserving students with PCD and RET codes only with an outstanding debt of less than 150,000 rands would be considered, as well as those qualifying are PCD and RET undergrad students who have been approved for assistance by both the Wits Hardship Fund and the Wits SRC Legacy Fund to register, provided that they owe less than 150,000 rands after having received assistance from these funds. And then qualifying students in these categories should check their student email accounts for more information. So don't forget that there's an extension up to up to Tuesday, I think it is, yeah? So there's a bit of time, and hopefully those issues get resolved. A reminder, we had that chat. Okay, we are battling to connect with the guest. He's out in Tanzania, as you know, so we're going to have those connection problems. Maybe in the meantime, if there's some WhatsApps we can play, voice notes, we'll certainly do that. And then that point that I brought up earlier on, particularly if you live in what I call the Riverlee area and the area leading from Nasrec to Soweto on the other side, have you seen a difference? Have you seen the difference in terms of how suddenly in the last few days that area has been spruced up? Well, it hasn't been spruced up for like months, if not years. And that's all because the G20 meeting of the foreign ministers has taken place at Nasrec. There's nothing like a big event to show off, don't you think so? Right. More to come here on the National Pulse in a moment.
Lina Lakake Tlompokekana, I'm former Mamelodi Sundowns captain. I'm a sports analyst, Lago SABC Sport. When I'm home, I try by all means to practice cooking. My favorite home-cooked meal, I'll go for pap and masonja because I can prepare that with easy. What do I normally get up to when I get a moment to myself? I would easily, play my guitar. I try to practice a lot of Tracy Chapman. My favorite foreign language is French. Bonjour, comment So if I didn't play full football, I think I was gonna be a baseball player. What do I like about SABC Sport is the fact that we given an opportunity to educate.
Catch the exciting Diski analysis by Sompo Long Range Kekana on match days live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hi, I'm Zycard. Catch me every Saturday from 7 to 9 p.m. on Spotlight as we bring you blow-by-blow sporting action, news. That's Spotlight every Saturday. You don't want to miss it.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
All right, so while we are battling to reconnect with Justice Dumisa Nsebeza, and I certainly hope we can do that soon, there's been comment from you on some of the issues that we've got, so let's get to those.
This is Tulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
Is anyone talking about the absence of the United States and its impact perhaps in managing, the G20 process?
The United States of America, the current administration, it has made so many big countries angry. I mean, your Canada, your Germany, your France. So at this moment, the view from many countries is that America cannot bully everybody all the time. So the work will continue with or without America.
That's Sophie Mkwena there, the SABC News International News Editor.
The Morning Brief. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za. You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, we've managed to reconnect with Justice Dumisa Nsebeza, and we will continue talking up to 6 o'clock. We've just lost him for the moment once again. In the meantime, let's get some of the comments.
Hey, Ashraf, we have people in this country that believe that children must be beaten up. Some believe, actually many believe that there must be a death sentence, but none of them actually bring evidence and research as to if you beat up a child, what do you get? If you kill someone, is there not going to be crime? Can people that want a death sentence bring us evidence from other countries that there is actually zero crime because of a death sentence? Thanks, Bongi here.
Well, I mean, that's what South Africa generally has argued about anyway. Let's get back to Advocate Dumisa Nsebeza. We do have you there, right, Advocate?
Yes, you heard me here now.
Okay, good. I know different format, but we've had to connect with you.
Okay.
Let's go. I mean, you've done many, many things. I just want to spend a couple of minutes, because we'll stop talking at 6, just about your early days. I mean, your home is the Eastern Cape. Tell me about your early days.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to tell about those early days, but I can only say that my mother and father were school teachers. So, I mean, and my father, I think he had a foresight of what, he wanted his kids to be like. Because he kept a huge bookshelf. And, I mean, when we were even in primary school, there were books everywhere, and there were encyclopedias, Reader's Digest, and whatever. And the funny thing about him was that he never spoon-fed us in the sense of saying, hey, you must read that book, you must read that book. But the bookshelf, which was virtually a library, I'm talking about the early 50s, was there. It was not locked. It was there. It was there open for us. I mean, children are curious. So we began to read as early as we could. And my brother was now professor of sociology in the University of Cape Town, Professor Emeritus, will tell you that, it was one of those very strange experiences where, even before he could go for high school, he was reading this Reader's Digest and using the encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still with us?
Yeah, I am. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
You can continue. Go ahead. I think it's maybe there is a misconnection, so he can't hear us any longer. Okay. We'll try and sort that out once again, right? In the meantime, I think I want to check if Phineas can play another couple of voice notes while we just reconnect again with our guest. Sincere apologies for that.
Ashraf, I don't think you can ask that question. Who wants them in power? Speaking about MK and EFF as government in waiting. Did you see their numbers? Do you acknowledge their numbers? So if it's not to your liking, then that's the kind of questions you ask. And that is wrong, because they are those who wants them in power. That is why they voted for them. Teresa, Cape Town.
Teresa, I'll tell you what, if you listen to the words, who wants them in power, it's maybe how you listen to it. I didn't say, why should we have them in power? I'm saying, who wants them in power? No, it's not for me to decide who must vote for them. And I agree with you. The MK party's numbers in particular has been substantial in that first election. And you can't take that away from them, right? Okay, let's get back then to Justice Dumisa and Sebeza. Right. So you were talking about your family and your brother when we lost you for the second, right?
Yes, I was saying, I think he has also made, note of that in some of the public speeches that he has made, that, there was this bookshelf and there were these books, there were the encyclopedias, all of them, as well as, Reader's Digest. So we started reading at an early stage. Without being spoon-fed.
Okay.
Our primary education was, in a nearby school. Atotsengiwe, primary school, which was a Dutch Reformed Church school. But I went to Mthatha to do my matric, to do matric, and I was in St. John's College, which was an Anglican church school.
And a very, very famous school. How, I know, I'm going to fast forward. I know you got into teaching as well, and you had this life of activism as well. Maybe just mix it in one go. What drew you to the legal space?
It was, I can tell you now, it was Justice Poswa. Justice Poswa, who came and represented us when we were charged in that case in which Munich had said the death sentence was competent. I mean, I tell you, if Justice Poswa was not the kind of effective, as far as we're concerned, effective, defender. He was not just there, he was defending, people whom he felt were being unfairly,
Okay, and that set it up. That set it up for you in terms of your own calling. Let's move on to other things, right? In the 4 minutes or so we have remaining. Upon reflection, I mean, what is your life's purpose?
Well, I'm reading 2 books now. The Stellenbosch Mafia, the Billionaires Club. It's by Peter du Toit. And I'm trying to ride 2 horses because, on the other hand, I also am reading a conglomerate of stories in a book of all those chapters, and I have a chapter in that book as well. It's called Human Rights in Africa, Legal Perspectives on Their Protection and Promotion.
And talking about books, is there a book that has had such a good impact on you that you'd love to recommend it?
Well, it is Terry Bell's book, Unfinished Business, Apartheid, South Africa in Truth. I also contributed towards the writing of that book.
Unfinished
It's now out of print.
Yeah. Is that Terry Bell who covered the mainly the unions, right? Yeah, I would think so.
Yes,
Yeah.
Terry Bell from Cape Town.
Oh, chatted to him very, very many times. Time to give somebody a shout out. Is there a young South African that impresses you enough for you to tell the whole country, like, this is the person that impresses me, look out for him or her?
Well, because it's everything. I think this young man called Njozi, he is very intelligent. And, well, I like him. I may not like his politics, and I'm not saying I don't like his politics, but he is the epitome of brilliance, of principle, of standing by what he appears to be believing in. That's just one of the people that I think
Just to
of.
confirm, you are talking about Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. That come out correct?
Mbuyiseni Ndlozi,
Okay,
yeah.
got that right. Who would you like to? I mean, who's the one person you've never had a chance to have a, coffee with, like a seat at the table? Who would you like to spend the time with, if you could?
My brother, Professor Lungisile Nsebeza.
Yeah, wow. Okay, and I'm just imagining that sort of meet up, right? Is that a quote, inspiring quote, a quote that you use often that you'd like to share?
The wheels of justice are grinding slowly.
Yeah.
But they grind exceedingly fine.
Well, there you are. Tell me, what's your hobby away from all the things that we know that you do?
Walking.
Keep on
I cannot walking. Even in this hotel in Arusha, I am using the outside perimeters of the hotel, inside the walls, to walk. And I've looked at the dead distance. It's about 45 minutes walking, as well as I think I cover 2 kilometers of walking.
What's your message to Donald Trump?
Shut up.
Okay, got that. We could have a 1-hour chat just about that answer, man, and maybe some other time. Right. How, shut up. I got that. I can tweet you about that one day, right? What's your thought on the GNU? Quick one answer on that one. One word
It
answer.
is not a GNU. It is a coalition. And there's a hell of a difference. The GNU was the one that Mandela and was it Botha and not Botha, the post 1990.
With de Klerk, yeah.
With de Klerk. That was the GNU. The current one is a coalition.
Okay. Just the last thing, then, how would you like to be remembered?
As a person who cared for others.
As a person who cared for others. Well, I tell you what, it's been great talking to you. I know we lost your connection for a few minutes, but you've delivered some gems and some serious bombs, believe me, that I think is the basis of conversations we should be having all of next week. So really appreciate you giving off your time, Justice Dumisa Nsebeza. And you did say you like walking, so I suppose your long walk to freedom continues.
Indeed. And I'm grateful to you for having arranged this, even though I was trepidated when I thought about it. I suppose I'm getting old.
Well,
I used to look forward to interviews, but now I say,
Well,
yeah.
You could have always told me shut up, and I would have just not spoken to you anyway. All right, your time's up. Oliver Dixon has jumped in and he says hi. You see, these are people who just jump into shows. So Oliver Dixon says hello.
You say hi to him, Oliver.
Well,
yeah, I like him. He's one of the...
You like him. Okay, there we are. All right, so you like
Very
two
much
people, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi and Oliver Dixon. My time's out and so is yours, right? That's it. We'll do it again.
Oliver is what Dumisa Nsebeza was in his youthful days.
Oh, there we are. He's listening. Okay. Thank you for joining us. We'll connect again soon. Safe trip back home to South Africa when you do get that opportunity. That's the Fireside Chat. We'll do another one next week. Right now, just go on 6 o'clock. Here's Greg Host with the news.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Enjoy the weekend ahead. Death toll rises in KZN storms and a drop in reported rape cases. Good evening. The KwaZulu-Natal Department of Cooperative Governance says the death toll of people who've lost their lives due to the heavy rain and mudslides in the province this week now stands at 7. Several parts of KZN experienced severe storms in recent days, resulting in infrastructure collapses, mudslides and flooded roads. The 7th death is that of a young learner who was swept away while crossing a river. Department spokesperson Sinzalo Mzila.